My name is Emily Davis, and I'm 21 years old. After finishing culinary school, I started working at the coffee shop my parents own. We have many regular customers, and I really enjoy working there. I admire my parents for running the shop for so long. Working while studying was harder than I expected, but I was happy with my life. However, everything changed when I got an unexpected call from Bob. He told me his wife had an accident and sounded very worried. We didn't know much about the accident, but we were concerned for my sister-in-law. Bob asked if we could look after his kids while he went to the hospital, and we agreed right away. Bob brought the kids to our coffee shop, and they seemed confused, but I tried to make them feel comfortable. 2 hours later, Bob called again. We were relieved to hear that my sister-in-law was okay, but she had a bad sprained ankle and needed to rest for a while. Bob asked if we could continue taking care of the kids. At first, I was unsure if I could handle it. My parents run the coffee shop, and I also work there, so it would be hard to do this every day. But after talking it over with my parents, we decided I would look after the kids for 2 weeks. I was nervous because I didn't have much experience with kids, but they were well behaved, and things went smoothly. My mom helped me when I needed it. After 2 weeks, things settled down, and my sister-in-law was better. But then, I got another call from Bob. His wife still wasn't feeling well, and Bob asked if I could watch the kids again. I wasn't sure what to do, but I couldn't leave the kids without help, so I agreed to help occasionally. A few days later, my sister-in-law asked me to watch the kids again. I agreed, and the next day, I picked up the kids, took them to kindergarten, and then took care of them at home afterward. My mom would visit sometimes to check on things. At night, I fed the kids, bathed them, and waited for Bob to pick them up. He thanked me for helping, saying it was a lifesaver. Even though I was tired and unsure if I was doing the right thing, I didn't want to leave Bob's family without support. A few days later, I got another message from my sister-in-law asking for help again. I went to pick up the kids, dropped them off at kindergarten, and helped my parents at the cafe for a little while. When it was time to pick them up, I quickly left to get them. There were already a few people waiting to pick up their kids when I arrived. As I waited for my nephews to come out, I heard someone call my name. I turned around and was surprised to see Ashley, an older student I knew from school. We hadn't seen each other in a long time. She told me her child also went to the same kindergarten as my nephews. I wanted to talk more, but it wasn't really the right time, so we exchanged contact information and said goodbye. The next day, Ashley came to the cafe while I was working. My parents saw what was going on and told us we could chat when there were fewer customers. I took this opportunity to talk with Ashley. Ashley seemed to really like our cafe, which made me happy, but then, she suddenly became serious and said, "By the way, I saw your nephew's mom the other day." I was surprised by this and just nodded. She continued, saying she hadn't spoken to her, but she was sure it was her because they had talked before. Ashley seemed to struggle to find the right words, which made me curious, so I encouraged her to keep going. What Ashley said next shocked me. It seemed my mom had overheard the conversation too, and we made eye contact. After Ashley left, I asked my mom what she thought about what had been said. My mom replied, "Let's keep an eye on this situation for now," and I agreed. Then, one day, I got a call from Bob. I couldn't answer right away, and when I looked at my phone, I saw I had missed several calls from him. I quickly called Bob back, feeling confused and worried. I asked, "What's going on?" Bob answered in a tense voice, clearly trying to control his anger. He told me that when he went home to get something he had forgotten, he found the kids alone in the house. The house was supposed to be empty, and this shocked me. But then, I started wondering, why was Bob upset with me? As I tried to ask him, my questions seemed to make him even angrier. He yelled, "My wife told me she asked you to take care of the kids today, but you left them alone, and now you're talking back to me?" I was taken aback by his words, but there were things I needed to explain, so I said, "Yes, your wife did ask me, but I told her I couldn't do it today. My mom got sick last night, and we were short-staffed at the cafe. I had to work and didn't have time to look after the kids." After hearing my explanation, Bob went quiet. Then, he asked, "According to my wife, every time she asks you to help with the kids, you complain and demand payment. Is that true?" I couldn't help but raise my voice during the conversation. I said, "I've never asked for money. I've never said anything like that. I've been helping with the kids, and Mom knows that too. If you have any doubts, why don't you ask her?" When I said this, Bob went completely silent. After a pause, he muttered, "So what was this story about money that my wife mentioned?" I replied, "I have no idea. You should ask your wife about it. Bob, sounding tired, said, I'll do that. I was still upset but felt like I had to share something I had heard from Ashley. After hearing what I said, Bob sighed and said, give me some time to think, then hung up. As I started to calm down, I grew worried about Bob, so I told my mom everything that had happened. Time passed without any word from Bob, and my parents and I were getting concerned. Then, a few days later, I got another message from Bob's wife asking me to look after the kids again. At first, I thought about saying no. I had done so much for her and the kids, and I felt like I had been treated unfairly, but I also felt embarrassed knowing I had been talked about behind my back. My mom stopped me from replying right away. She suggested I contact Bob first, so I forwarded the message to him. A few minutes later, Bob replied. It seemed like he had been upset, but after our conversation, he seemed to have made up his mind. After hearing Bob's side, I agreed to help, and I told Bob's wife, okay, and went to pick up the kids as usual. After dropping the kids off at kindergarten, I called someone. Once the call ended, I took a deep breath, preparing myself for what was coming. When I arrived at the coffee shop, Bob was already there. He looked very tense, either nervous or anxious. It was the first time I had seen him like this, and I wasn't sure how to approach him. But then, my mom stepped in. She told Bob, I'll pick up the kids, so don't worry, you need to go home and talk things out with your wife, Emily. I'm counting on you. Bob, looking surprised by my mom's words, nodded. I nodded back at her, then said, okay, I'm off, and left with Bob. When we got to Bob's house, he stopped in front of the door, looking for his keys. I noticed his hands were shaking, but I pretended not to see. Inside the house, I could faintly hear voices, my sister-in-law and a few other women talking. Bob unlocked the door and quietly opened it. We stepped inside without making a sound, and I could hear their conversation clearly. One of the voices asked, so, how's your foot doing? I could hear my sister-in-law answering the woman's question. She said, oh, it's fine, almost completely healed. I thought to myself, I knew something felt off lately, but I quickly focused again on what she was saying. Then, she added, but once it's fully healed, my husband will probably find out, and I won't be able to relax like I do now. One of the women responded, oh, right, your sister-in-law and her parents are looking after the kids, right? How lucky. My sister-in-law replied, yeah, really lucky that Emily isn't married. I'm so grateful to have an unemployed, single person living at home. Hearing this made me angry. I had suspected my sister-in-law might be taking advantage of us, but I never imagined she'd think so badly of me. My anger reached its limit, and I burst into the living room, glaring at her. Yes, I'm not married, and I live at home, but I'm not just doing nothing. I thought we were helping because you needed it. I didn't think you'd talk about it like this. But my sister-in-law wasn't focused on what I was saying. Instead, she looked confused and asked, why are you here? How did you get in? Just then, I felt a tap on my shoulder and stepped back. She finally noticed Bob, and her eyes widened. Bob, with a cold voice, said, I let her in. You've been lying to me all this time. You're the worst. You've been using the money I gave you for yourself instead of giving it to Emily. My sister-in-law turned pale. I walked over to her friends and told them it was time to leave. Everyone left with awkward expressions on their faces. As my sister-in-law's friends were leaving, one person made eye contact with me. It was Ashley, my senior from school. She had interacted with my sister-in-law before and seemed to be concerned about her recent behavior. When we unexpectedly met again, Ashley offered to help with the situation. Once all the friends had left, my sister-in-law started crying and told her side of the story. To sum it up, she explained that after the birth of their second child, taking care of the kids became really difficult. Bob was always busy with work and couldn't help with childcare or housework, which made things harder for her. When she got injured, my mom and I helped, which made things easier, and she ended up relying on us. Regarding the money Bob gave her, she admitted that she hadn't had any spending money since she got married and couldn't resist using the money Bob gave her. I wasn't completely convinced by my sister-in-law's excuses. Sensing my doubt, Bob suggested it was time to leave, and I agreed. I left his house with him. When I got home, my mom was waiting with a worried look on her face. It seemed like my dad was taking care of my nephews, so I explained everything to her. She listened and said, I see, this is a problem between the two of them, and then went back to my nephews. My nephews, not knowing what was happening, smiled and called out, Aunt Emily. Despite feeling conflicted, I did my best to hide my emotions and smiled back. A few hours later, Bob returned home and said he would stay at our parents' house for the night. My mom, understanding, simply said, "I see." After putting the kids to bed, Bob explained his decision to our parents and me. He said, "I won't divorce her this time, but if she does this again, I'll consider it." Bob apologized for what I had gone through, and he also apologized to my mom. I told him it was okay, but I asked if he was sure about his decision. Bob nodded and said, "Yeah, after talking to my wife, I realized I'm partly to blame. We've decided to give it another try." I asked Bob what he meant. He said, "I've been focused on work and haven't paid enough attention to my wife. I left all the responsibility for the kids to her, and I now realize that it put too much pressure on her. I've been unfair to both her and the kids. I should have spent more quality time with them." I had mixed feelings hearing this, but my mom spoke up. She said, "As an individual, it's hard to forgive what your wife did to us, but as a wife and mother, I can understand some of her feelings. If this is the decision you both have made, I won't oppose it, but don't involve others in your problems again." Bob nodded and bit his lip, clearly affected by my mom's words. Since then, neither Bob nor my sister-in-law have asked anything of me. I haven't even seen her once. My father is still angry, saying she can't even apologize, but honestly, I prefer not to see my sister-in-law because it would just bring back bad memories. When I told Bob how I felt, he promised, "I understand. I'll try to make sure you don't have to meet her again." Thanks to that, my daily life returned to normal. One day, I heard the bell at the coffee shop and turned around. At the entrance stood Bob, with my nephews beside him. As soon as my nephews saw me, they let go of Bob's hand and ran over to me, calling my name. I smiled and greeted them happily. While the kids were chatting with my parents over cake, Bob quietly told me that although my sister-in-law was sorry, she didn't like the kids visiting me because they were so fond of me. Hearing this, I couldn't help but think it was her own fault. I know there may come a time when I have to face my sister-in-law again, but right now, it doesn't seem like I'll forget what she did to me anytime soon.
The buzzing of my phone woke me up at 2:45 a.m. It wasn't the usual sound of a text or call. This was different, like a security alert. Half asleep, I almost ignored it, but something made me take a closer look. The notification was from an app one didn't even recognize, Secure Track. It read, "Alert, location data accessed." My name is Sabrina, and that message was the beginning of the end of my so-called normal life. I sat up slowly, careful not to disturb Paul. He was fast asleep beside me, his back turned, just like every night lately. The blue light from my phone lit up the room, making strange shapes dance on the walls as I tried to figure out what this mysterious app was. It wasn't on my home screen, but after digging through my settings, I found it, Secure Track, running silently in the background. How long had it been there? What the hell? I whispered, my hands shaking as I opened it. A map popped up, showing everywhere I'd been that week. My daily drive to the school where I teach, Sunday coffee with Caitlin, even the quick stop I'd made at the jewelry store to buy Paul's anniversary gift. The room suddenly felt too hot, too small. I got out of bed as quietly as I could and made my way down the hall to the kitchen. I passed Alyssa's room on the way. My 15-year-old daughter was fast asleep, completely unaware that her mom's life was unraveling. Under the harsh light of the kitchen, I went deeper into the app. It wasn't just tracking where I went. It had everything, my texts, my call history, even my internet searches. Every new discovery felt like a punch to the stomach. Who could have done this?
Why?
My hand shook as I reached for a glass of water. The house was silent except for the low hum of the refrigerator. The quiet made everything feel even stranger. Suddenly, my phone buzzed again. Another alert, Secure Track, audio recording in progress. My heart froze. Audio recording? I scrambled through the app until I found a folder labeled Recordings. The newest file was from 3 days ago. I tapped it, and my own voice played through the speaker, soft and distant. "I don't know, Caitlin," I heard myself say during our coffee chat. "Paul's been acting different lately, working late, always on his phone." My blood turned cold. I quickly stopped the recording, my stomach twisting in knots. Someone had been listening to my private conversations. Someone had been tracking everywhere I went. For an app like this to be installed, someone would have needed physical access to my phone. The sound of footsteps upstairs made me freeze. They were heading toward the bedrooms. A moment later, I realized it was just Paul, probably getting up to use the bathroom like he did most nights. But for the first time in 16 years of marriage, the sound of his footsteps made my skin crawl. I quickly shut the app and deleted the alerts, my instincts taking over. Don't react. Don't give yourself away. Gather proof. Make a plan. My students would never believe their calm, Shakespeare-quoting English teacher could think so strategically. When I got back in bed, I lay there, wide awake, listening to Paul's steady breathing. My thoughts were spinning. The man I'd trusted for so long, the father of my child, my partner, was hiding something. But why would he need to track me like this? Or was this part of something even bigger? One thing was clear. I couldn't confront him. Not yet. Not until I figured out what I was dealing with. Tomorrow I'd start digging. Tomorrow, I'd begin to untangle whatever secret was wrapped around my life. As I finally started to drift off, my phone buzzed again. Half asleep, I nearly ignored it. But then I saw it, a text from an unknown number. Be careful what you look for, Sabrina. Some truths are better left buried. Morning came too soon, and I hadn't slept much. My mind was still spinning from everything I'd uncovered. But I forced myself to act normal, moving through the morning routine. The kitchen filled with the smell of coffee and toast as I packed Alyssa's lunch, doing my best to keep my hands steady. Paul came downstairs in his sharp blue suit, the one he always wore for big client meetings. He barely looked at me as he filled his travel mug with coffee. Big meeting today? I asked, keeping my voice casual while watching his face for any signs of guilt. Yeah, he said, not meeting my eyes. Probably won't be home for dinner. His focus stayed on the coffee, stirring it with robotic precision. The Morrison account needs extra attention, he added. The Morrison account. The same excuse he'd used 4 times in the past 3 weeks. My chest tightened. I wanted to scream, to demand answers about the app and the tracking. But instead, I bit my tongue, nodded, and turned back to making Alyssa's sandwich. Mom, have you seen my USB drive? Alyssa called as she walked into the kitchen, her dark hair still damp from her shower. The blue one with all my coding projects on it. Check the living room, I said, grateful for the distraction. I said you were working there last night. Alyssa stopped, her eyes flicking between Paul and me. She was always sharp, too smart for her own good sometimes. Her gaze narrowed as she noticed the space between us, the way we avoided touching when Paul brushed past me to grab his briefcase. Dad, she said suddenly, you promised to help me with my computer science project this weekend. Remember? The one about digital privacy and security. I froze, nearly dropping the knife in my hand. Paul's shoulders stiffened. Sorry, sweetheart, he said, his voice strained. Something came up at work. Maybe next weekend. Alyssa's face fell, but there was something else in her expression, suspicion. Right. Work again, she said softly. Paul leaned down, kissed her on the forehead, and headed for the door. Love you both, he called out, but the words felt empty, like they were rehearsed. After he left, Alyssa turned to me. Mom, what's going on? What do you mean? I asked, busying myself with the breakfast dishes. Dad's been acting weird, and she hesitated. You look like you haven't slept. Plus, you're washing that same plate for the 3rd time. I set the plate down, forcing a smile. It's just work stress, honey. You know how it gets during finals season. Mom, Alyssa said, crossing her arms, I'm 15, not 4. I know something's wrong. I heard you up last night. Before I could come up with a reply, my phone buzzed. Another secure track alert. I snatched it up before Alyssa could see the screen, but not before catching the message. Audio recording saved. Kitchen, 6:30 a.m. I need to get to school early, I said quickly, grabbing my purse. Teacher's meeting. Will you be okay taking the bus? Alyssa's face shut down. Sure. Whatever. The drive to school was a blur. Once I parked, I pulled out my phone and searched for Caitlin's number. She'd been my friend since college and worked in IT security. If anyone could help me figure this out, it was her. But just as I was about to call, another text came through from the same unknown number. Careful who you trust, Sabrina. Caitlin might not be the friend you think she is. My blood ran cold. How did they know I was about to call Caitlin? Unless I glanced around the parking lot, suddenly feeling exposed. The spyware must have access to my phone's camera too. A knock on my window made me jump. It was just Etienne from the English department, looking concerned. You okay, Sabrina? The meeting's about to start.
Yeah.
Coming, I said, grabbing my bag. As I walked toward the building, my mind raced. I couldn't trust my phone. I couldn't trust my husband. Maybe I couldn't even trust Caitlin. And worst of all, I was starting to see cracks in my relationship with Alyssa, the one person I was trying so hard to protect from all of this. I walked into the school building, and my phone buzzed again. The message read, "Smart girl, your daughter. Maybe she should look into that computer science project more carefully." Lots of interesting things to learn about digital privacy these days. This wasn't just a warning anymore, it was a direct threat. And now they were pulling Alyssa into it. That was my breaking point. Tony Stark's office was tucked between a laundromat and an Italian takeout place. The private investigator looked as worn as his leather chair. He flipped through the screenshots I'd taken of the spyware app. Secure Track Pro, he said, sliding his glasses off. High-end software. You can't just grab this off the regular market. Can you trace it? I asked. He nodded slowly. Already did. It was purchased 5 weeks ago through a shell company. But here's where it gets interesting. He turned his computer screen toward me. The buyer used your home address for billing. My stomach sank.
Paul.
That's not all, Tony continued, clicking through more files. The shell company's been busy. They've been making regular payments to a rental property in Oakwood Heights. Fancy place, too pricey for one person. Unless someone else is helping with the rent, I said, the words bitter in my mouth. Bingo. He pulled up a photo on the screen. My heart dropped. It showed Paul walking out of the building with a woman I didn't recognize. She was younger than me, effortlessly beautiful, the kind of person who didn't have to try. His hand rested on the small of her back in a way that was far too familiar. Erica Carr, Tony said. She works at Paul's firm. Junior partner. Rising star. Fast-tracked for promotion. My phone buzzed again with another secure track alert, but I ignored it. I focused on the dates under the photos. These are from the nights he said he was working late on the Morrison account, I muttered. Tony hesitated, then said, "There's more." The spyware? It wasn't his idea. I looked up, startled. From the email trail I found, he explained, Erica pushed for it. She's been encouraging him to make a clean break. A clean break? I asked, my voice shaky. From you and Alyssa. He slid a folder across the desk. These are all the files I pulled, including, he tapped one document. A consultation with a divorce attorney. Last week. The room felt too bright. The smell of Italian food wafting through the wall made me feel sick. Why the spyware, then, if he's planning to leave? I asked. Insurance, maybe. Or control. People do strange things when they're living double lives. My phone buzzed again. This time, I looked at the screen. Having fun with Tony? Wonder what Paul would think about his wife meeting strange men in secret. I felt the blood drain from my face. I showed Tony the message. His face darkened. They're watching you, he said quietly. Probably through your phone's camera. He grabbed a sticky note and scribbled down a number.
Here.
This is a burner phone.
Use it to contact me from now on.
And Sabrina, he looked at me, his tone serious. Be careful. People who use surveillance like this? They're not just messing around. As I walked to my car, another text popped up. Tick-tock, Sabrina. How long before Alyssa finds out her mother is sneaking around too? I sat in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. They were trying to mess with my head, to make me doubt myself, to make me feel guilty for uncovering their lies. My phone rang. It was Paul. Hey, he said, his tone casual and smooth, like nothing was wrong. Just checking if you can pick up Alyssa today. My meeting's running late. Meeting.
Right.
I wondered if Erica was with him at that very moment, maybe running her fingers through his hair the way I used to. Actually, I said, my voice steady, I have a meeting too. With the Morrison account, the silence on his end was deafening. The Morrison accounts? His voice cracked slightly. Yeah, I said, starting my car. Funny thing about that account, Paul, they closed their business 5 months ago. I didn't wait for his reply. But hey, enjoy your meeting. Say hi to Erica for me. I hung up before he could respond, my heart pounding. Through the windshield, I caught a glimpse of my reflection. I looked pale, scared. But there was something else too, something harder, something determined. My phone lit up with his number again. I declined the call and opened the Secure Track app. If they wanted to watch me, fine. Let them see what happens when they push someone too far. I'd planned to go to Erica's apartment, but instead, I found myself in my classroom during lunch. I stared at a stack of unsigned permission slips for tomorrow's field trip, lost in thought. Alyssa appeared in the doorway. You missed breakfast again, she said, dropping her backpack by my desk. And Dad didn't come home last night. I forced a smile. He texted. Late meeting.
Stop.
Alyssa's voice cracked. Just stop lying to me. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as we locked eyes. Her face, once soft and childlike, now carried sharper edges, too knowing, too grown for her age. I found something on Dad's laptop, she said, pulling out her phone. Remember when he asked me to help organize his work files last weekend? My stomach tightened. Alyssa, there were emails, she interrupted. A lot of them. To someone named Erica. She placed her phone on my desk, the screen facing up. He's planning to leave us, isn't he? Before I could answer, a student appeared at the door. Mrs. Matthew, Principal Owen needs to see you. He says it's urgent. I found Paul waiting in the principal's office, sitting next to Mr. Owen. Paul wore his courtroom smile, the one he used when he was about to tear someone's reputation apart on the stand. Sabrina, Owen began, shifting uncomfortably. Serious allegations have been made. There's a claim about inappropriate contact with a private investigator during school hours, and concerns about your emotional stability affecting your teaching. The trap was closing. Paul had gotten ahead of me, spinning the story to suit him. Of course, he was a lawyer. Manipulating narratives was his specialty. I'm worried about you, honey, Paul said, his voice dripping with fake concern. The paranoia, the accusations, the secret meetings. This isn't like you. Let me help you. Help. Like he'd helped by planting spyware on my phone? Like he'd helped by planning a divorce behind my back while pretending to be the perfect husband? Mr. Matthew has suggested you take a leave of absence, Owen added, to get things sorted out. My phone buzzed. Another Secure Track alert. Probably recording every word of this conversation. They were building their case, trying to make me look paranoid, unfit to teach, unfit to parent. I have proof, I said quietly, my voice steady. Paul's smile faltered for just a moment. Proof of everything, I continued. The spyware you and Erica installed on my phone. The shell company. The apartment in Oakwood Heights. I turned to Owen. I also have recordings of every conversation from the past 5 weeks. Yes, including conversations with students and parents. I wonder how the school board would feel about that kind of privacy violation. Owen's face went pale. Privacy violation, he stammered. I'll email you the evidence, I said, standing up. But right now, I need to speak to my daughter. She found her emails, Paul. The ones to Erica about leaving us. Paul's confident mask cracked. Alyssa found them? Yes, I said sharply. So while you're here trying to ruin my career to cover your tracks, our daughter is sitting in my classroom, trying to figure out why her father is abandoning her. I walked out, leaving them stunned and scrambling for words. In the hallway, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Secure Track. It was a text from Tony. Got something big. Erica's not who she claims to be. Meet ASAP. Back in my classroom, Alyssa was still there, her laptop open, lines of code scrolling across the screen. What are you doing? I asked, my voice shaky. Fighting back, she said, not looking up. Did you know most spyware has backdoors that can be hacked? Dad really should have done better research before buying it. I watched her fingers fly across the keyboard, her face focused and determined. In that moment, she looked so much like me, not the scared, gaslit version I'd been lately, but the strong, fearless version I used to be. The version I needed to find again. Mom, Alyssa said, finally looking up. I found something else in the app's code, Alyssa said, her voice low. Something bad. Really bad. I don't think this is just about Dad's affair anymore. My phone buzzed. This time, it wasn't the unknown number. It was from Erica herself. We need to talk. Your husband isn't the only one being blackmailed. Meet me tonight. Alyssa's face was lit by the blue glow of her laptop as we sat in Tony Stark's dimly lit office. It's not just spyware, she explained, her fingers flying across the keyboard. It's part of something bigger. Look at these network connections. Tony leaned closer, squinting at the code. These IP addresses, they're routing through law firms across the state. Dad's firm isn't the only one involved, I said, Erica's message about blackmail flashing through my mind. How many, Alyssa?
17 so far, she said.
They're all using the same spyware, all tied to one central server. Her fingers kept moving as she added, and get this, they're all handling high-profile divorce cases. Tony let out a low whistle. Surveillance footage, private conversations, location data. That's a gold mine for divorce settlements. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Erica. They're watching. Don't trust Paul. Meet me at Millvale Riverfront Park in 45 minutes. It's a trap, Tony said, reading the message over my shoulder. Probably, I replied, grabbing my coat.
But she's scared, I added.
You didn't hear her voice in the recordings Alyssa found. Wait. Alyssa turned her laptop toward me. Look at this email thread. Erica tried to back out 4 weeks ago. The next day, someone sent her this. The attachment showed Erica leaving a building I recognized immediately, a women's shelter where I volunteered. She was helping a young woman inside, both of them glancing nervously over their shoulders. Her sister, Tony said quietly. She's been hiding from an abusive ex for 5 months. Erica's been helping her stay off the grid. My stomach churned as the pieces fell into place. They're using her sister to control her. Mom, Alyssa said, her voice trembling. There's something else. Remember that college fund Dad started for me last month? My chest tightened. What about it? The money, it's not mine. It's being funneled through shell companies. The same ones paying for the spyware. She hesitated, her voice heavy with disbelief. Dad's helping them launder money. The room spun as the weight of it all crashed down on me. Paul wasn't just having an affair or spying on me. He was part of something far darker, something that could ruin not just our marriage but his career, his freedom, and everything we had built.
My phone buzzed again.
This time it was a video. It showed Alyssa walking home from school yesterday. Beneath it was a single line. Back off or she's next. They're bluffing, Tony started, but I was already on my feet, heading for the door. Mom, stop. Alyssa called after me. We need a plan. I have one, I said, turning back to see my daughter's worried face. She looked so much older than her 15 years. I'm ending this.
Tonight.
Not alone, you're not, Alyssa shot back, grabbing her laptop. I can hack their network, shut down the spyware remotely. Give you a window. Absolutely not, I said firmly. It's too dangerous. More dangerous than you meeting Erica alone? She challenged, her chin raised defiantly. They're already threatening me. At least let me fight back. Tony cleared his throat. The kid's got a point. You need backup. I've got a friend in the FBI's cybercrime division. One call. No, I shook my head, thinking about Erica's sister and all the others being blackmailed. Not yet. If we scare them off too soon, people could get hurt. We need to know exactly what we're dealing with first. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a photo of Paul entering a building I didn't recognize, followed by a message.
TikTok.
Your husband's about to make a deal. A deal that can't be undone.
Choose wisely.
I looked at Alyssa, my brave, brilliant daughter who refused to be a victim, and at Tony, who had become more than just an investigator. They were my allies in this chaos. Okay, I said at last. Here's what we're going to do. Alyssa, you and Tony will work on accessing their network. But you stay here where it's safe. I'll meet Erica and find out what she knows. And then,
Tony asked,
I thought of the lies, the manipulation, the threats against my daughter. My voice was steady as I replied, and then we burn it all down. Every last bit of it. As I left the office, I heard Alyssa's fingers flying across her keyboard. I couldn't help but smile grimly. They thought they could scare a mother by threatening her child. They were about to learn how dangerous that mistake would be. Millvale Riverfront Park was eerily quiet when I arrived. Erica sat alone on a bench near the water. She looked nothing like the confident woman in Tony's photos. She seemed smaller, fragile. "They're watching," she said without looking up. But Alyssa's program worked. "We have about 10 minutes before the spyware kicks back online." I sat beside her, keeping a safe distance. "Tell me about my husband's deal." "It's not just Paul," she said, her hands trembling as she handed me a USB drive. "The firm's been running this for years. They install spyware on their own clients' devices, collect dirt on both sides during divorces, and use it to manipulate settlements. The money laundering? That's just extra profit." My phone buzzed. A text from Alyssa. "Mom, something's wrong. Dad's not at the office. The message cut off. Behind me, a voice I knew all too well said, "Going somewhere, Sabrina?" "I really wish you'd stayed out of this, Sabrina." Paul stepped out of the shadows, and he wasn't alone. 3 men in suits flanked him, their faces cold and emotionless. "The thing is," Paul continued, moving closer, "you were never supposed to find the spyware. That was Erica's mistake." He shot her a sharp, disappointed look. "She got sloppy. Like you got sloppy with the college fund?" I said, stepping in front of Erica. "Money laundering through our daughter's account? That's low. Even for you." "It's called protecting our future," he replied, his smile empty. "Everything I've done was for us. The firm's offering me partner, Sabrina. Real power. All I had to do was prove my loyalty. By spying on your own families?" I demanded. "By showing I know how to play the game." He gestured to the men beside him. "Now, we can handle this quietly. The firm is willing to be generous. A clean divorce, full custody of Alyssa, a comfortable settlement. All you have to do is walk away." My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from Tony. "FBI on the way. Stall him." "And if I don't walk away?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. Paul's expression turned cold. "Then things get complicated for everyone." He held up his phone, showing a live feed of the women's shelter where Erica's sister was staying. "And maybe that bright future Alyssa has in computer science disappears too. It would be a shame if she got caught hacking corporate servers." "You'd threaten your own daughters?" I asked, my voice shaking. The words tasted bitter. "I'm protecting her," Paul said, stepping closer. His tone softened, almost pleading, "teaching her how the world really works. Come on, Sabrina.
Take the deal.
We can all walk away from this." Behind me, Erica let out a soft, broken sound. I thought about her sister, about all the families this scheme had hurt, and about Alyssa, who had just seen her father for who he truly was. "You're right about one thing," I said quietly. "This ends tonight." I pulled out my phone and turned the screen toward him. A live stream was playing, Paul's entire confession, being sent directly to Tony and the FBI, with backups saved to secure servers. Paul's face went pale. "You didn't come alone," he said hoarsely. "Neither did you," I replied. Flashlights suddenly lit up the park as FBI agents emerged from the darkness. Paul's 3 friends vanished without a word, leaving him alone as the agents closed in. "Sabrina, please," he begged, his confident mask gone. "Everything I did was for us. For Alyssa." "No," I said, watching as the agents cuffed him. "Everything you did was for yourself." My phone buzzed one last time, a message from an unknown number. "This isn't over. The firm protects its own." I looked around the park. Paul was being led away, his world collapsing around him. Erica sobbed in relief as agents reassured her that her sister was safe. My life, the one I had worked so hard to build, was in ruins. The firm would strike back. My career might be over. Our savings were likely gone. And somewhere in Tony's office, my teenage daughter had just witnessed her father choose power over family. But as I stood in the darkness, Watching Paul's downfall, one thing was certain. I wasn't scared anymore. I realized something important. Sometimes you have to let everything burn to see what's truly worth saving.
My phone buzzed again.
It was a text from Alyssa. Mom, you okay? No, I wasn't okay. But for the first time in weeks, I knew exactly what I was fighting for. The holding cell at the federal building wasn't what I'd imagined. Paul sat inside, still wearing his expensive suit, somehow looking both powerful and pitiful under the harsh fluorescent lights. 2 FBI agents stood outside, but had given us privacy to talk. You could have taken the deal, Paul said quietly. We could have kept our family. Our families, I repeated, placing the USB drive Erica had given me on the table between us. Let's talk about family, Paul. Let's talk about the 25 other families your firm destroyed this year alone.
His jaw tightened.
You don't understand how things work in my world. I understand perfectly. I slid a stack of printouts across the table, bank statements, emails, surveillance logs. You chose power over people, money over morality. And now you're choosing your firm over your daughter. Leave Alyssa out of this, he said, his voice rising. You brought her into this. I shot back, my voice steady, even though my hands shook. You used her college fund to launder money. You threatened her future to protect your scheme. A knock at the door made us both jump. I turned to see Alyssa standing there, Tony right behind her. I hadn't expected her to come. I tried to shield her from this moment, but the determined look in her eyes reminded me so much of myself. I want to talk to him, she said, stepping into the room. Paul's face crumpled. Sweetheart, don't. Alyssa sat beside me, her laptop open. I found something in the spyware code, she said, her voice steady but laced with anger. Something Mom doesn't know about yet. My heart stopped. Paul's face went pale. The program wasn't just recording conversations, Alyssa continued. It was fabricating them, creating fake evidence to use against your clients' spouses. And Mom, she turned the laptop toward us, her voice trembling slightly. They were building a case against you too. I stared at the screen. Audio files, manipulated photos, faked conversations. It was a complete, fabricated history of inappropriate behavior, designed to ruin me. Insurance, Paul whispered. In case you ever found out. In case you ever became a threat. I felt the anger I'd been holding back boil over. You were going to destroy my career. Take Alyssa away from me. The firm required leverage on everyone involved. Even me, Paul said. He reached for Alyssa's hand, but she pulled it away. You would have used it, Alyssa said sharply. Just like you used Erica's sister against her. Just like you've used everyone. A commotion outside drew our attention. Through the window, I saw Erica being led in by agents. Her face was streaked with tears, but her posture was strong, determined. Behind her came a line of men in suits, the firm's senior partners. Their air of power was gone, replaced by panic as federal agents marched them inside. They're all turning on each other, Tony said, appearing in the doorway. The whole house of cards is falling apart. Paul stood abruptly, his desperation plain on his face. Sabrina, please. I looked at him, the man I'd once trusted with everything, and felt nothing but disgust. It's over, Paul. I can still fix this, Paul pleaded, his voice desperate. The firm has connections, resources. Stop, Alyssa said sharply, cutting him off. Her voice was steady, her words clear. Just stop lying. She stepped closer to him, her gaze unwavering. Mom found the spyware, but I found the truth. I cracked their encryption. Me, your daughter. The same one you were ready to sacrifice. Alyssa stood, gathering her laptop, her expression a mix of anger and resolve. I used to think you were the smartest person I knew. Now I see you're just another bully who thought he could control everyone with their secrets. She turned to me. Can we go home now, Mom? Paul reached out again. Alyssa, everything you did was for yourself, she said coldly, cutting him off again. Mom protected me. You only protected your power. As we walked toward the door, Paul called after us one last time. What happens now? I paused and looked at my daughter, the amazing person she had become through all of this. I looked at Tony, a true friend who had stood by us. And I glanced out the window at Erica, who had finally chosen truth over fear. Then I met Paul's eyes. Now we rebuild, without you. Alyssa slipped her hand into mine as we left. Behind us, Paul's carefully constructed world continued to collapse. But ahead of us, there was something new, a future built on truth instead of lies, strength instead of control, and love instead of fear. My phone buzzed as we stepped outside. It was a message from the school board. Position secure. Evidence of firm's manipulation cleared. When can you return to teaching? I smiled and squeezed Alyssa's hand. There was still a lot of healing to do, but for the first time in months, the path forward felt clear. 5 months later, I stood in our small apartment, watching Alyssa set up her computer station in what used to be the dining area. The space was much smaller than our old house, but it felt more like home. Mom. Alyssa called, her voice excited. The cybersecurity program accepted me for their summer workshop. I walked over to see the acceptance email on her screen, my heart swelling with pride. Things had changed so much in half a year. The trial was still ongoing, but Paul had pleaded guilty to reduced charges in exchange for testifying against the firm. The scandal had shaken the legal community, exposing similar schemes at law firms across the state. My phone buzzed with a message from Erica. Coffee tomorrow? Caitlin's coming too. We need your input on the shelter's new security system. I smiled. Erica's transformation had been unexpected but inspiring. She had gone from someone I feared to an ally I trusted. After everything, she had dedicated herself to helping other women escape controlling relationships, using her insider knowledge to strengthen the shelter's protections. Think fast. Alyssa tossed a small package my way. I caught it and opened it to find a USB drive shaped like a key. It's clean, she said with a grin. I laughed, holding the drive in my hand, and looked at her. So are we? I smiled as I checked the message. We could laugh about it now, but those weeks of uncovering the spyware had changed both of us. Alyssa had turned her pain into purpose, becoming the youngest intern at Tony's new cybersecurity consulting firm. And me? I was Professor Matthew again. Professor Matthew, a student's voice called from my laptop. Right? Office hours. Even through video chat, teaching felt different now, better, more meaningful. Just a minute. I called back, then turned to Alyssa. Dinner at 6. Caitlin's bringing that pasta you like. Can't, she said, packing her bag. I'm meeting Tony and his FBI friend to talk about the workshop curriculum. She paused, her expression softening. Dad's sentencing is next week. The room seemed to quiet for a moment. We'd both received letters from Paul, full of apologies, explanations, and promises to change. They sat unopened in my desk drawer. Some bridges, once burned, weren't meant to be rebuilt. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You thought you won, but power always protects its own. I showed it to Alyssa. She was already typing. Traced it. Just another bitter ex-partner from the firm. Want me to send it to Tony? No, I said, deleting the message. Some people never learn that real power isn't about control. The doorbell rang. Caitlin was early. She and I were preparing for an upcoming educational conference on digital privacy in schools. Funny how my nightmare had turned into something that could help others. Coming. I called, but Alyssa was already opening the door. She and Caitlin had grown close, bonding over coding and their shared love of terrible sci-fi movies. Hey, warrior women, Caitlin said, walking in with bags of takeout. Ready to change the world? I glanced around our cozy home. Alyssa's workspace was set up where she helped people protect their privacy. Conference notes were spread across my desk. And Caitlin's friendship with Erica had grown as they worked together to secure the shelter. You know what's funny? I said, grabbing plates from the cabinet. When all of this started, I thought it was about revenge, making Paul pay for what he did to us. It wasn't, Alyssa said, setting up her laptop. It was about deciding who we wanted to be after the betrayal. Caitlin raised an eyebrow. When did you get so wise, kid? When my mom showed me that strength isn't about controlling others, Alyssa said with a smile. It's about helping others find their own strength.
My phone buzzed again.
This time it was Tony. Got that teaching position approved. You start the cybersecurity awareness program next semester. Alyssa's curriculum suggestions were brilliant. I laughed, holding the phone up for Alyssa to see. Looks like we've got more work ahead. Alyssa grinned.
Good.
We're just getting started. I looked at my daughter, this incredible person who hadn't just grown through our challenges but had become stronger because we faced them together. I looked at Caitlin, who had become more than just a friend, and at the life we had built from the ashes of betrayal. Some scars never fully heal, but they remind us of how strong we are. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't about destroying those who hurt us. It's about creating something better from the ruins they left behind. All right, I said, opening the takeout with a smile. Let's change the world. My name is Amy, and 7 years ago, I married Brian. I thought we shared the same dreams and goals. We moved into my beautiful apartment on the top floor of a tall building with an amazing view that always took my breath away. I worked as the head of the finance department at a trading company, and my career was really taking off. Brian's mom, Lauren, lived nearby and often visited us. From the start, she made it clear she didn't like my career-focused lifestyle. "A woman's place is at home," she'd say with a disapproving look. "You should be taking care of your husband, not running off to work every day." I tried to stay calm, smiling and nodding when Lauren went on about what a good wife should do. But inside, I was frustrated. I had told Brian from the beginning that I wanted to focus on my career before we had children, and he had agreed. But as time went on, I saw him slowly changing his mind, likely because of his mom's influence. One evening, after a long day at work, I came home to find Brian and Lauren sitting at our dining table, talking quietly. They stopped talking as soon as I walked in, and I felt uneasy. "Amy," Brian said, looking tense. "We need to talk." I dropped my bag and sat down, feeling nervous. Lauren spoke first. "Amy, dear, we're worried about you. All this work, it's not good for you. You're neglecting your home and your husband. When are you going to think about having kids?" I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Lauren, Brian, and I already talked about this. We agreed to focus on our careers first, then consider starting a family." Brian shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Amy, maybe it's time to reconsider. We're not getting any younger and Mom's right. The apartment's messy, and I'm tired of eating takeout every night." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Brian, are you serious?"
We talked about this.
"You know how much my job means to me? More important than your family's?" Lauren cut in sharply. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly on the floor. "My job is how I'm building a future for us, for our family." "I thought you understood that, Brian." I stormed off to our bedroom and locked the door behind me. I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the start of my problems. And I had no idea how right I was. The next morning, I left for work before Brian woke up. In the elevator, I made a promise to myself. I wouldn't let anyone, not even Brian, stop me from reaching my goals. I had worked too hard to get here, and I wasn't about to give up now. I arrived at the office earlier than usual and stayed late into the night, determined to prove myself. My hard work didn't go unnoticed. A few hours later, my secretary buzzed in. "Mrs. Alexander, the president would like to see you in his office." My heart raced as I made my way to the top floor. Mr. Timothy, our company's president, was known for his sharp business skills and his way of surprising employees. "Amy, come in," he said when I knocked on his door. "Have a seat." I sat down on the edge of the leather chair, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. "I've been watching your work closely," Mr. Timothy began, his face unreadable, "and I must say, I'm impressed." I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "Thank you, sir." He leaned forward, his eyes intense. "We're expanding, Amy, merging with a large company from another city. It's a big move, and we need our best people on it." My pulse quickened. Was this leading to what I thought? "I'm planning to promote you," he continued, "to head of a new department. But I won't lie to you, Amy. It's going to be tough. You'll have to work harder than ever before. Are you up for it?" I thought about Brian and Lauren, about their expectations of me. Then I thought about all those late nights I'd spent working, the pride I felt when a project succeeded. Absolutely, sir, I said firmly. I'm in. I won't let you down. As I left Mr. Timothy's office, I felt like I was floating. This was what I had been working toward for years. I couldn't wait to tell Brian. Surely, when he saw how far I'd come, he would understand why my career mattered so much to me. On my way home, I stopped at our favorite restaurant and ordered all of Brian's favorite dishes. I picked up a bottle of champagne and a bouquet of roses. This was worth celebrating, and I wanted to make it special. I juggled the bags as I unlocked our apartment door. Brian, I called out. I'm home, and I've got a surprise, I said, finding Brian in the living room, sprawled on the couch with the TV blaring. He barely looked up as I walked in. Brian, you won't believe what happened today, I said, my excitement overflowing. I'm getting promoted. I'll be the head of a new department. Isn't that amazing? Brian muted the TV and turned to me, but he didn't look happy. So, you'll be working even more now, huh? My smile faded a little. Well, yes, but think about what this means for us. We can finally afford that big house we've talked about, take regular trips, set up our future. Brian stood up quickly. Our future? What future, Amy? You're never home as it is. When was the last time we had dinner together? When did we even have a real conversation? I looked at the bags of food I brought. That's why I brought dinner. I thought we could celebrate. Celebrate what? He said, raising his voice. Celebrate you choosing your job over our marriage? Celebrate how I married someone who cares more about work than having a family? I felt tears filling my eyes. I thought you'd be happy for me, I whispered. For a moment, his face softened, but then it hardened again. I can't do this anymore, Amy. Something has to change. With that, he stormed off to his office, slamming the door behind him. I stood in the middle of the living room, surrounded by the things I bought to celebrate, feeling lonelier than ever. As I put the food away and poured myself a glass of champagne, I wondered, was this the price of success? And if it was, could I really pay it? A few days later, while leaving the office, I had an idea. I'd hire a housekeeper, someone to clean and cook. That would solve Brian's complaints about the mess and lack of home-cooked meals. Feeling hopeful, I made the arrangements. 5 weeks later, I came home to a spotless apartment filled with the smell of a home-cooked meal. I smiled, sure that Brian would be pleased. I heard the front door open and close. Brian, I called out. I'm home, and dinner's ready. He walked into the kitchen, looking around the clean space. What's all this? I hired a housekeeper, I said proudly. She cleans and cooks for us. I thought hiring a housekeeper would make things easier for both of us. But instead of the gratitude I expected, Brian's face darkened. So, this is your solution? Hire someone else to do your job, he asked. That's not fair, I replied. I'm trying to find a balance. Balance? Brian laughed bitterly. Is that what you call this? Tell me, Amy, now that you've found a replacement for yourself in the kitchen, are you going to find a replacement for yourself in our bed too? I felt like I'd been slapped. How dare you? I said quietly. I've done nothing but try to make our life better, and this is how you react. Brian turned away. I'm going out. Don't wait up. The door slammed behind him, leaving me alone in the spotless kitchen, with the untouched dinner going cold on the table. Over the next few days, Brian and I barely spoke. I threw myself into work, focusing on the upcoming merger. Dealing with spreadsheets and financial reports was easier than dealing with the mess my personal life had become. Then one rare Saturday when I didn't have to go into the office, I decided to make an effort. I spent the morning cooking Brian's favorite meals, set the table with our best dishes, and even wore the dress he bought me for our last anniversary. When Brian came home, I greeted him with a smile. I thought we could have a nice dinner together, I said, trying to keep my tone light. Just the two of us. Brian looked at me for a moment, then nodded silently. My heart leapt. Maybe this was the fresh start we needed. I was just about to serve the appetizer when the doorbell rang. Confused, I went to answer it. There, standing in the hallway, was Lauren. "Lauren?" I said, surprised. "We weren't expecting you." "Oh, I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd drop by," she said, pushing past me into the apartment. "Brian, darling, there you are." I watched helplessly as my carefully planned romantic dinner turned into a family gathering. Lauren took over the conversation, slipping in little comments about my housekeeping and my lack of maternal instincts. "You know," she said, pouring herself more wine, "in my day, a woman knew her place was in the home. We took pride in taking care of our husbands and raising our children." I stood up quickly. "I think it's time for dessert," I said, escaping to the kitchen. I leaned against the counter, trying to calm myself down, but I could still hear Lauren talking in the dining room. "Brian, darling, you need to talk some sense into her. A woman's duty is to her family first. Everything else comes second." I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. This wasn't the life I had imagined. I had a successful career, a beautiful home, but I was starting to wonder, at what cost? As I listened to Lauren's endless talk about traditional family values, I began to wonder if I had made a huge mistake somewhere along the way. One evening, I came home later than usual, still thinking about the day's meetings. As I opened the door, I froze. Scattered across the living room floor were baby clothes, tiny onesies, miniature socks, and even a small pair of shoes. "Brian," I called out, my voice shaky. "What's all this?" He walked out of the bedroom with an odd look on his face. "Oh, Mom brought those over. She thought it might help you get in the mood." I picked up a tiny t-shirt, my hands trembling. In the mood for what, exactly? "For starting a family, of course," Brian said, like it was the most natural thing. "Amy, we're not getting any younger. It's time we seriously thought about having kids." That evening, I silently put away the baby clothes, my mind spinning. Was I being selfish? Was my ambition ruining my marriage? The next morning, I woke up to find more baby items placed around the apartment, a rattle on the coffee table, a baby book on my nightstand, a high chair in the kitchen. This had Lauren written all over it. I tried to ignore them, but new items seemed to appear every day, as if the apartment was slowly turning into a nursery, whether I wanted it or not. One night, I came home to find Lauren sitting on our couch, flipping through a parenting magazine. "Lauren," I said, unable to hide my irritation. "I didn't know you were coming over." She looked up with a sweet smile. "Oh, Amy dear, I hope you don't mind. Brian said I could wait here for him. He just went out to get some groceries." I nodded stiffly and went to the bedroom to change. When I came back, Lauren was standing by the window, looking out at the city skyline. "You know, Amy," she said, still looking out the window, "a view like this is wasted on just 4 people. Imagine how lovely it would be to have a child toddle up to this window, little hands pressed against the glass, eyes wide with wonder." A headache started to form. "Lauren, I appreciate your concern, but Brian and I will decide when we're ready for children." She turned to face me, her eyes hard. "And when will that be, Amy?" "When you've worked yourself into an early grave. When it's too late." I opened my mouth to respond, but just then, Brian walked in, his arms full of grocery bags. He looked between us, sensing the tension. "Everything okay here?" he asked carefully. Lauren's tone changed instantly. "Oh, everything's fine, darling. I was just having a little chat with Amy about family planning." Brian's eyes lit up. "Really? That's great. I knew you'd come around, Amy," Brian said. I felt trapped, outnumbered. I need some air," I mumbled, grabbing my coat and rushing out of the apartment. A few weeks later, I came home exhausted after a long day. The sight that met me stopped me in my tracks. There was Lauren, wandering around our living room in fluffy pink pajamas. "What's going on here?" I demanded, my voice rising. Brian stepped out from the kitchen, looking defiant. "I've decided Mom is going to live with us. You're always at work, always away. I'm tired of being alone." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You decided this without even talking to me? When are you ever here to talk about anything?" Brian snapped back. I looked at Lauren, who was watching us with a smug smile. "You can't stay here, Lauren. This is my home." Brian's face darkened. If you're not happy with this arrangement, you can leave. I felt like I'd been slapped. Excuse me? I bought this apartment before we were married. It's in my name. You can't kick me out of my own home. Lauren stood up, her face twisted with anger, and took a step toward me. Now listen here, you ungrateful. I held up my hand. Don't come any closer, Lauren. If you lay a hand on me, I'll call the police. Lauren collapsed onto the sofa, clutching her chest dramatically. Oh, Brian, did you hear that? She threatened to call the police on me. Your own wife, threatening your mother. That horrible job of hers has made her heartless. Brian rushed to her side, shooting me a look full of anger. How could you, Amy? To your own mother-in-law. I couldn't take it anymore. Without saying another word, I stormed off to the guest bedroom and locked the door. I spent the night tossing and turning, my mind racing with the absurdity of it all. The next morning, my phone rang. It was Mr. Timothy, my boss. Amy, I need you on a plane today, he said. We're ready to move forward with the merger, and I need you in Orlando ASAP. I packed my suitcase as fast as I could. As I headed for the door, Brian and Lauren stood there, their faces like stone. I have to go on a business trip, I said, my voice cold. It's for the merger. I'll be back soon. Brian's lip curled. Don't bother coming back at all. The flight to Orlando was a blur. I threw myself into work, grateful for the distraction. The merger negotiations were intense, taking all my focus. But in the quiet moments, I couldn't stop thinking about the mess I had left behind. When I was alone in my hotel room, the reality of my situation hit me hard. After a long week of tough meetings and sleepless nights, I finally returned home. Standing outside my apartment door, with my suitcases by my feet, I felt a mix of exhaustion and hope. All I wanted was to collapse into my own bed and escape from everything for a while. I put my key in the lock, but it wouldn't turn. Frowning, I tried again. Nothing. A cold wave of dread washed over me as I began to understand what must have happened. I knocked on the door, my heart pounding. After a moment, the door opened, and there stood Brian and Lauren, both in casual clothes, looking at me with smug expressions. Why doesn't my key work? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Brian let out a harsh laugh. I changed the locks, he said, his eyes cold. You can come in if you're ready to choose your family over your precious career. I stared at him, confused. What are you talking about? Brian reached into his pocket and pulled out some papers. With a dramatic motion, he held them out to me. Divorce papers, he said. It's time to choose, Amy, your career or your home. What's it going to be? I looked at Brian, really looked at him, and in that moment, I realized something huge. I didn't love him anymore. The man I'd married was gone, replaced by this bitter, manipulative stranger. Lauren's shrill voice broke my thoughts. Well, we're waiting. Make your choice. I took a deep breath, standing tall. I choose my career, I said, my voice steady. Because I don't have a family or a husband, not anymore. Brian's face twisted with anger, but he shoved a pen at me. Calmly, I signed the divorce papers right there in the hallway. As soon as I finished, Lauren grabbed my arm and roughly pushed me toward the elevator. Good riddance, she spat, slamming the door behind me. I stood there, staring at the closed door of what used to be my home. A strange laugh bubbled up inside me, almost hysterical. I had just been thrown out of my own apartment, the one I bought with my own hard-earned money. Too tired to make a scene, I picked up my suitcases and went to a nearby hotel. A few hours later, I got a call from my friend Lily, a realtor I had worked with when I bought the apartment. Amy, honey, how are you doing? Lily asked, sounding concerned. I've been better, I replied. I admitted. Why do you ask, Lily? Lily hesitated. I've seen Brian's posts on social media. He's saying some pretty nasty things about you. My stomach dropped. What kind of things? He's calling you a heartless career woman who threw away your family for your job. He says he sacrificed everything for your relationship and that you just used him and then tossed him aside. He's even talking about suing you for alimony. People are really feeling sorry for him. Amy, I felt a surge of anger. That's not what happened at all. I didn't think so, Lily said. Do you want to tell me your side? I gave her a quick summary of what had happened over the past week. When I finished, Lily was silent for a moment. Oh, Amy, she finally said, I'm so sorry you're going through this. Listen, I'm going to set the record straight with our friends and colleagues. People need to know the truth. Thanks, Lily, I said, feeling a lump in my throat. I really appreciate that. After I hung up, I felt a mix of emotions: anger at Brian's lies, gratitude for Lily's support, and a growing determination. Brian may have taken my home for now, but I wasn't going to let him ruin my reputation or my dignity. Just then, my phone buzzed, and I saw Mr. Timothy's name. My stomach dropped. I took a deep breath and answered. Amy, we need to talk, Mr. Timothy said, sounding unusually serious. I've seen some concerning things on social media. I closed my eyes, bracing myself. Sir, I can explain. No need to explain, Amy, he interrupted. I want to hear your side of the story. Relief washed over me. I took a deep breath and told him everything. The arguments, Lauren moving in, being locked out of my own apartment, and Brian's smear campaign online. When I finished, there was a long pause on the other end. Then, to my surprise, Mr. Timothy chuckled. Amy, do you really think I'd believe that nonsense your ex is posting? He said. I know you. I've seen your dedication and work ethic. Don't let this shake your confidence. You have every right to defend yourself, and I want you to know that the company is behind you. Tears of relief filled my eyes. Thank you, sir. You don't know how much that means to me. A couple of days later, my phone pinged with a social media notification. Brian was doing a live broadcast from my apartment. Curious, I tapped on the video. There was Brian, grinning at the camera, with a film crew behind him. Hey, everyone, he said excitedly. Big news. We're about to start a major renovation on our apartment. The crew from will be here in 2 weeks to transform this place. I stared at the screen, and a plan started forming in my mind. Instead of feeling angry, I felt calm and determined. I picked up my phone and called Lily. It's Amy. I need a huge favor, I said as soon as she answered. I need you to sell my apartment fast, like within 2 weeks. Lily let out a low whistle. That's a tall order, Amy. What's the rush? I quickly explained Brian's renovation plans. I need new owners in there before the film crew arrives. But, Amy, how am I supposed to show the apartment? Brian changed the locks, remember? I sent her the latest photos I had of the place. These will have to do. I know it's not perfect. Lily cut me off with a laugh. Oh, honey, don't underestimate me. I have a couple who've been looking for a place just like this in the area. They trust my judgment. With these photos and the reputation of the building, I think I can make this happen. For weeks flew by in a rush of work and anticipation. Before I knew it, the day of the big renovation reveal had arrived. I sat in my hotel room, laptop open, watching the live stream with bated breath. The camera panned across my former apartment, now buzzing with an excited film crew and construction workers. Brian and Lauren stood in the center, smiling proudly. We're so excited to start this renovation, Brian was saying, his arm around Lauren. It's time for a fresh start, a new chapter in our lives. Just as the host was about to signal the start of demolition, there was a commotion off camera. The door burst open, and in walked a smartly dressed couple, followed by a familiar face, Lily. I'm sorry, but you can't renovate this apartment, the man said, holding up a stack of papers. It belongs to us now. The camera swung as confusion spread. Brian's face shifted from shock to anger. What are you talking about? This is my home. Lily stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. Actually, Brian, this apartment belonged to your ex-wife, Amy. She sold it to this lovely couple 4 weeks ago. Your signature on the renovation documents is a forgery. The show's host turned to Brian, looking furious. You forged documents? Do you realize how much trouble you've caused? Brian and Lauren's faces turned beet red as the host scolded them on live television. The scandal unfolded in real time, with millions watching as Brian's lies crumbled around him. I couldn't help but laugh, feeling a mix of relief and satisfaction. It was finally over. With the money from selling the apartment, I made a bold choice. I bought a charming little house in the city where our company had just finished its merger. It felt symbolic, a fresh start in the place where my career was reaching new heights. To my surprise and delight, Mr. Timothy appointed me as the head of our newly acquired company. It was a big challenge, but one I was more than ready for. A few weeks later, I found myself face to face with Brian again, this time in a courtroom. He had the nerve to ask for half the money from the apartment sale, plus alimony. I watched with satisfaction as the judge denied his claims, citing his attempts to take my property and the forged documents. As we left the courthouse, Brian approached me, his earlier confidence now replaced with desperation. "Amy, please," he begged. "I'm sorry for everything. Can't we start over? Give our marriage another chance." I looked at him closely and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness. Just a deep sense of freedom. I gave a small, final laugh. "No, Brian," I said, shaking my head. "We can't start over. But I can start fresh, and that's exactly what I'm doing." As I walked away, I felt lighter than I had in years. My career was thriving. I was leading a successful merger and respected by my peers and superiors. And I had a beautiful new home, one that was truly my own. I got a call from my husband, Lucas, in the middle of the night while I was on a business trip overseas. His words hit me like a truck. "Hey, I want a divorce." I froze.
What?
I managed to say. Deep down, I had always feared this day might come, but I never thought he'd bring it up while I was so far away. "What do you mean? Can you explain this properly?" I asked, my voice shaking. Lucas let out a bitter laugh. "You probably haven't noticed, but I have a mistress. She's younger and prettier than you. We even have a child together. So, I want you to divorce me so I can be with them." I was silent. He went on, as if trying to drive his point home. "I've already sold the house and car." He paused, clearly waiting for me to react. I took a deep breath and gave him a short, calm reply. "Okay." There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. "Huh," Lucas muttered, clearly confused. Maybe he thought I'd start crying or begging him to stay. But I didn't. I had been preparing myself for this possibility for a long time. His words didn't shake me like he probably expected. A few days later, when I got back home, Lucas was at the airport waiting for me, looking frantic. But let me tell you a bit about myself before we get to that. My name is Jenna. I'm 35 years old and a housewife. I grew up in a regular, middle-class family. Ever since I was a kid, I loved learning Italian and started taking classes in elementary school. By middle school, I had a talent for English too, and during high school, I even got to stay with a host family in Italy. That's when I started dreaming of working for an international company. To make that dream come true, I got into the business program at a top university. During my time there, I studied abroad in Italy and worked hard toward my goals. Job hunting wasn't easy, but I was thrilled when I landed a position at my second-choice international company. My family was so proud, and my sister even said, "Jenna, you're amazing. We're so proud of you. Take care and do your best." Their support meant everything to me. Starting my new job was tough. The work was more demanding than I expected, and even though the company treated its employees well, the standards were incredibly high. In my early 20s, with little experience, I often had to work long hours. But my coworkers and supervisors were supportive, and most importantly, I found joy in doing the job I had always dreamed of. After working hard for several years, my efforts were finally noticed. I started getting more important tasks, and my friends often said things like, "You're on your way to becoming a successful businesswoman," or "You're so cool, such a strong woman." But despite how people saw me, I had a soft spot for cute things. I loved collecting items of my favorite characters, and even slept with stuffed animals. I wanted a pet, but my busy job made it impossible, so on my days off, I go to cat cafes to relax. At work, I kept a professional and sharp image, never showing the softer side of me. Maybe it was because I was so busy that I craved comfort in those little things. As I got older, many of my friends started getting married and having kids. At weddings, people would tell me, "You should get married soon too." I'd laugh it off and say, "I'm too busy with work." The truth was, I didn't feel romantic toward anyone at work or among my business contacts, and I didn't have time to meet new people. I wondered if I was meant to stay single forever. Back then, I thought that was okay. I liked focusing on my career, and it didn't seem like a bad way to live. Then one day, I went to yet another friend's wedding. I applauded the couple as usual, but this time, I felt a bit uneasy. I was already past 30. If I wanted to get married, I needed to start looking for someone soon. The reception moved to a bar later that evening, and I found myself sitting alone at the counter with a drink. I watched the other guests laughing and the bride and groom smiling shyly. Suddenly, a voice broke through my thoughts. "Are you alone? Can I sit here?" The voice was smooth and pleasant, and it caught me off guard. "Oh, sure," I said, turning to look at the man. He was about my height, tall for a woman, and seemed younger than me. His face was average in a good way, not quite what I expected from his lovely voice. "Are you here for the wedding?" he asked. "Yes, I'm a friend of the bride," I replied. "I'm a high school friend of the groom. Want to have a drink together?" I nodded, and we started talking over drinks. "Wow, you work at that international company?" "I've heard about it." "That's amazing." To someone like me, just a salaryman at a small company, you feel like you're from a different world, the man said. He introduced himself as Lucas, and I found him easy to talk to. Before we parted, we exchanged contact information and started meeting up after that. Lucas was 3 years younger than me and worked in sales at a small company. He had a gentle and calm personality, was a great listener, and knew how to give genuine compliments. I enjoyed spending time with him. After a few dates, Lucas confessed his feelings for me, and I happily said yes. Even though his yearly income was less than a third of mine, it didn't bother me at all back then. The more time we spent together, the more I found Lucas adorable. I didn't see him as super cool or dependable, and maybe that was why I never felt disappointed in him. Instead, I liked his cute and earnest nature. When he said things like, "I'd love to try your cooking," I couldn't resist and happily cooked for him. After dating for about a year and a half, Lucas surprised me with a ring. "I love how you're always so cool, but you have this cute side too. If you're okay with it, will you marry me?" he asked. I was caught off guard but thrilled. I accepted the ring with a smile. "Thank you, Lucas. Let's take care of each other as husband and wife." Lucas was over the moon, practically jumping for joy, and his happiness made me laugh. Afterward, we met each other's families to share the news. Lucas's parents were kind and simple people who happily blessed our marriage. My family was supportive as well, with my parents telling him, "Please take good care of our daughter." My sister, who is already married, quietly teased me, saying, "He seems like just the type you'd choose, knowing your soft spot for cute things. But don't spoil him too much, okay?" I laughed and replied, I know." And just like that, life with Lucas began. Since we were starting fresh, I decided to buy a condo. It was a big decision, but I thought it would be a good investment for the future. I chose a slightly bigger place, thinking ahead in case we had kids. I believed our happy married life was about to begin. But reality hit me hard. Lucas didn't know how to do any housework. He had lived with his parents until our marriage, and had always relied on his mom for everything. I tried to be patient and said, "Lucas, now that we're married, we should share the housework. If you don't know how, I can teach you." But Lucas frowned and said, "What? Now that we're married, isn't it your job to handle the housework?" I looked at him and replied firmly, "No, Lucas. Housework is something we share."
No.
"I have a busy job. It'll be a problem if you can't even handle housework," I said firmly. "Come on, get up. I'll teach you how to use the washing machine." I spent time teaching Lucas the basics of housework, even though he wasn't interested. At first, Lucas started doing some cleaning and laundry, but his efforts were always half-hearted. I had to redo most of what he did. As for cooking, it was a disaster, so I handled it by preparing meals ahead of time. I didn't want to discourage him, so I made an effort to praise him, even for the little he did. I thought encouragement might help. But instead of improving, Lucas began doing less and less. He knew I'd pick up the slack, so he started taking advantage of my patience. Finally, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Lucas, you need to stop relying on me so much. Learn to do housework properly. I'm busy with work and have business trips. You need to take care of things too. Lucas frowned and said, "What's with you?"
You've changed since we got married.
You're always nagging. You make good money, so if you're going to complain so much, why not just hire someone to do the housework? I was stunned. Yes, I earned a decent income, but spending money carelessly would drain our savings. Despite talking to him about it multiple times, Lucas refused to change. Then, about a year after we got married, I came home to find Lucas sitting pale-faced in the living room. "Lucas, what's wrong? You don't look good," I asked. He sighed and admitted, "My company is going bankrupt because of the recession. I'll be out of a job next month."
What?
I was shocked. Although Lucas had been working overtime more often lately, I had no idea his company was in such bad shape. "So, what are you going to do? Have you started looking for a new job?" "I'll think about it later," he replied. "I'm tired and stressed. I just need some time." I decided to give him space, thinking he needed time to process everything. But after his company shut down and he no longer had work, Lucas spent all day playing video games. He didn't do any housework, and when I came home late, I'd find him sitting in front of the TV, completely absorbed in his games. This went on for months. My patience wore thin, and one day, I finally said, "Lucas, haven't you rested enough? Don't you think it's time to start working again?" Lucas didn't even look up. "I want to think carefully about my next job," he said. At my old job, I was just being used. Next time, I want a job where I can achieve something meaningful, like self-realization or whatever. Even though I wanted to say, "What nonsense," I knew I couldn't force Lucas to work. So, even after his unemployment benefits ran out, I kept supporting him. One day, as he was glued to his video games, I sarcastically said, "If you like games so much, why not try streaming? You might even make some pocket money." To my surprise, Lucas's eyes lit up. "That's a great idea."
You're so smart, Jenna.
"I'll give it a shot. I have a good feeling about this," he said, full of enthusiasm. For someone who had been doing nothing for months, it was a sudden change, and I wasn't sure if it was a good or bad thing. "Then you'll need a PC and streaming equipment," he added casually, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I blinked in shock. "What?" "I don't have any savings, but I'm serious about this," he explained. "So please buy it for me." Reluctantly, I bought everything he needed. Deep down, I thought this would fail, and he'd finally realize he needed to get a proper job. But a few months later, things took a surprising turn. Lucas became popular as a game streamer under the name Jay. To my shock, he even started ranking on charts. Fans online left positive comments like, "His voice is so nice," and "It's funny how bad he is at games." He managed to attract both men and women to his streams. He partially hid his face on camera and, of course, never mentioned that he was married.
See?
I told you I could succeed when I tried. The world finally recognizes my talent, Lucas declared, full of himself. Despite his success, he didn't show a shred of gratitude for all the support I had given him or for buying the equipment that started it all. Still, I approached him calmly. "Lucas, I'm happy you're doing well. But don't you think you should contribute some of your earnings to our household expenses? It's been a while since your unemployment benefits ended, and I've been covering everything." Lucas looked at me as if I had said something absurd. "Why should I? You make enough to handle the living expenses. Let's just keep our finances separate." I was stunned. True to his words, Lucas kept all his streaming income to himself. By now, the kind and considerate man I had dated was long gone. He had become completely selfish and dependent on me. Around that time, I bought a car on loan, a luxury car I had always dreamed of owning. I only drove it on weekends, but I cherished it like a treasure. One day, Lucas casually said, "Hey, let me drive your car." I raised an eyebrow. "You work from home. You don't need a car for streaming. Why would you need to drive it?" "We're married, so it's fine." "Come on, let me," he insisted. Eventually, I gave in and handed him the keys, though it didn't sit right with me. After that, Lucas started going out whenever he wanted during weekdays while I was at work. His popularity as a streamer kept growing, and he gained a huge following. He also began living a flashy lifestyle, dressing in expensive designer clothes. I felt sad seeing how much he had changed. But since we were still married, I continued our life together, hoping things might get better. As we entered the 5th year of our marriage, my career was thriving. I was given more responsibilities at work and often had to travel overseas for business trips. Sometimes I'd be away for a few days, other times for up to 4 weeks. Each time I came home, the house was a complete mess, like a garbage dump. Lucas spent all his time locked in his room, streaming. He still depended on me for everything and never helped out around the house. We barely talked anymore, and I found myself wondering, why am I still married to him? That's when I started collecting evidence for a divorce and making plans to move on. One day, I told Lucas, I'll be going overseas again tomorrow for a 3-week business trip. Take care. He didn't even look up from his phone. I sighed, left for my trip, and threw myself into my work. On the 11th night of my trip, I got a call from Lucas. Hello, Lucas? Do you know what time it is here? It's midnight, I said, half asleep. Then he dropped a bomb. Hey, Jenna, I want a divorce. I froze.
What?
I managed to say. I had suspected this might happen one day, but I never thought he'd bring it up while I was halfway across the world. What do you mean? Can you explain properly? I asked, trying to stay calm. Lucas chuckled. You probably haven't noticed, but I have a mistress. She's younger and prettier than you. We even have a child together. I didn't say anything, so he kept going. I want you to divorce me so I can live with my mistress and our child. Oh, and I've already sold the house and car. He sounded so confident, like he expected me to crumble. But I didn't. I simply said, okay.
What?
Lucas stammered. He must have thought I'd cry or beg him to stay. He had no idea I had been mentally preparing for this moment for a long time. You want a divorce, right? Fine, I said calmly. There's a completed divorce paper in the living room drawer. You can sign it and submit it yourself. Lucas was taken aback. You had divorce papers ready? Well, thanks for making it easy. Goodbye then. Enjoy being the woman your husband left behind. I held back a laugh.
Sure.
Well, I'm going back to sleep. Goodbye, Lucas. Then I hung up and immediately blocked his number. I called my sister and asked her for a favor, then went to bed and slept peacefully until morning. The next day, I focused on my work and stayed busy until my trip was over. Finally, it was time to go home. The business class seat provided by my company was so comfortable that I fell asleep during the flight. When I woke up, I stretched and thought that was a good nap. No jet lag for me this time. I'm ready to get back to normal life. After landing, I collected my luggage and headed toward the airport lobby. As I reached the exit, I suddenly heard someone shouting, "Hey, Jenna." I turned to see Lucas running toward me, looking panicked. "Oh, why are you here?" I asked, surprised. I don't remember asking for a ride. Lucas didn't answer directly. Instead, he started ranting, his words spilling out in a rush. "What have you done? The car, the house. Because of you, I stepped back, startled by his strange behavior. "I don't understand what you're talking about," I said calmly. "Can I go now? I'm tired." I yawned and tried to walk past him, but he blocked my way. "Wait a minute. Listen to me," he shouted, so I stopped and crossed my arms, waiting for him to explain. "First, I submitted the divorce papers after you told me to," he began. "I see," I replied casually, scrolling through my phone and barely paying attention. "Are you even listening?" Lucas snapped. When I went home to meet with the real estate agent about selling the house, there was a lock on the door. I couldn't get in. Then, when I tried to use the car, there was an anti-theft lock on the tires, and I couldn't drive it. I tried calling you, but you didn't answer. You blocked my number. I let out a small sigh. "Yes, I blocked your calls." "And what about it?" Lucas's face turned red with anger. "Did you put the lock on the house and the tire locks on the car?" How did you even do that when you were overseas? I shrugged. I asked my sister to handle it. His eyes widened in shock. Your sister? Yes, I said, keeping my tone light. You said you sold the house and car, remember? But when my sister checked, both were still there. So, I guess you were just bluffing. You were probably only getting estimates from agents, right? Lucas's face turned even redder, and he stammered. Well, yeah, that's true. But I was about to sell them. I couldn't help but sigh as Lucas continued ranting. No, Lucas, you couldn't have sold the house or car even if you tried. Both are in my name, and all the important documents needed to sell them are at my parents' house. Lucas froze, his face blank. What? He muttered. Did you really think anyone could just sell a house or car by saying, I'm selling this, without being the legal owner? Obviously, they'd need proof of ownership and the proper paperwork, right? I said, shaking my head. Lucas looked completely stunned, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. You've always dumped all the complicated paperwork on me during our marriage, so of course, you don't even understand something this basic, I added with a hint of disgust. Lucas's face twisted in frustration. If you knew they couldn't be sold, why did you put locks on the house and the car? Because of you, I couldn't get into the house or use the car. It was awful. I sighed again. Why would I let someone who cheated, had a mistress, and demanded a divorce have free access to my house? Same with the car. They're in my name, so I just secured them for my own peace of mind. Lucas glared at me, his eyes bloodshot. What's with that attitude? I can't believe you're doing all this just because I couldn't sell your stupid property. You're so not cute. That's what I hated about you. Always acting like you can handle everything yourself. So arrogant for a woman. I stayed calm and replied, Oh, really? Then why did you marry me in the first place? Lucas snorted. Obviously for your money. The fact that you worked at an international company and made good money, that was the only reason you were worth marrying. His words dripped with malice, but they didn't affect me. I just looked at him thoughtfully. Come to think of it, there wasn't much benefit in me marrying you either. Lucas's face turned red with anger. Don't act all high and mighty. I'm the one leaving you. My mistress is way better than you, hundreds of times cuter, and she even gave me a child. Doesn't that make you feel inferior? She's a better woman than you'll ever be. I couldn't help but smile faintly. Better than me, huh? What's so funny? Lucas snapped. Still smiling, I reached into my bag and pulled out a photo. Is this your mistress? I asked, showing him a picture of a young, attractive woman in her early 20s. Lucas's eyes darted nervously as he recognized her. You knew about Miriam? He stammered. I gave him a sweet smile. Of course. You're not the only one who wanted a divorce. I've been gathering evidence for a while now. You're so careless, Lucas. Didn't you realize the dashcam records the interior too? I said, watching his face go pale. But I didn't stop there. Once I saw when you were meeting her from the dashcam footage, it was easy. I hired a private investigator to gather more evidence. It didn't take long to identify your mistress. Lucas's face froze, and I added, I was a little surprised to find out she was already pregnant, though. He stood there, stunned, before finally blurting out, Don't do anything to her. She's been through a lot after giving birth, and she's young. She doesn't have money, and she didn't even know I was married. I raised an eyebrow, pretending to look concerned. Wow, you're really defending her. You must love Miriam a lot. Of course, I do, he said firmly. She's pure, sweet, and my soulmate. I'll protect her, and our child no matter what. As Lucas puffed up with self-righteousness, I quietly took out my phone and played a video. It was dashcam footage from my car, showing Lucas driving with a heavily pregnant Miriam sitting in the passenger seat. Thanks for taking me on a drive today, Miriam said in a sugary voice. The food was delicious too. Lucas's face in the video lit up with pride. You're so good at saying thank you. What a good girl, he said smugly. I want to marry you soon. Miriam pouted, crossing her arms. Really? Then hurry up and divorce that old hag already. I want you to be my husband before the baby comes, okay? Lucas's voice in the video reassured her, just wait a little longer. I'll handle everything while she's on her overseas business trip. Then we'll be together, me, you, and the baby. We'll live comfortably with the money from selling the house and car. I paused the video and looked at Lucas. So, Miriam didn't know you were married, huh? She seems pretty aware to me. Lucas was pale and sweating. Before he could say anything, I dropped another bombshell. And about her being pure. You might want to take a closer look. What are you trying to say? He shouted. I took out a stack of photos and scattered them on the floor. Lucas's face grew paler with each picture he looked at. What is this? Who are these men? The photos showed Miriam with different men, holding hands, entering hotels, and even getting prenatal checkups with a man who wasn't Lucas. That's who Miriam really is, I said calmly. She targets popular streamers for relationships. Let me guess, you started out as a streamer, and she was just another fan, right? Lucas was frozen, unable to speak. He fell to his knees, clutching one of Miriam's photos, his face blank with shock. Looking at him pitifully, I said in a soft, almost sympathetic voice, You really are something else, Lucas. Planning to raise a child who might not even be yours, I said flatly, looking at Lucas. He muttered to himself like he was in a daze. No. Miriam told me I was the only one. This can't be true. I stared down at him without emotion. Can I leave now? We're basically strangers at this point. There's nothing left to discuss, is there? Suddenly, Lucas snapped out of his stupor and started yelling. If you hadn't shown me all this, I could have stayed happy. How cruel can you be? Because of you, I can't trust anything anymore. I couldn't help but sigh, feeling nothing but annoyance. That's not my problem, Lucas. Do you even hear yourself? Whatever. Do what you want. He sneered and said, Fine. Even if I divorce you and leave Miriam, I'll still be fine. I've got over 3 million followers as a streamer, and I'm earning way more than you now. Too bad for you. You're losing a famous streamer as a husband. Serves you right. At that, I smiled sweetly and said, Why don't you check your phone? Lucas froze for a second before pulling out his phone with a smug look. As he unlocked it, his face turned pale. What's this? Over 1,000 notifications? What's going on? He frantically scrolled through his screen, his expression growing more horrified by the second. Finally, he looked up at me, trembling. Jenna, you didn't. With the biggest smile of the day, I said, Oh, I did. I exposed everything online. How you were married, had a mistress and a loved child, and how horribly you treated me. Lucas let out a scream that echoed through the airport lobby, causing people around us to stare. He completely lost it.
What have you done to me?
My reputation. My followers. My whole career is ruined. Look at these messages. They're calling me the worst man ever, saying I betrayed everyone. I casually held up my phone, tilting my head playfully. Oh, by the way, this whole scene is being live-streamed. Wow, look at that. Over 5 million viewers. They're loving it. Lucas's face twisted in panic, and he lunged for my phone. Give me that. But it was far too late. His ugly words and breakdown were already out there for everyone to see. As he collapsed onto the floor of the airport, rolling around in a fit of rage and despair, I calmly walked past him and headed toward the taxi stand, feeling lighter than I had in years. Afterward, Lucas faced intense backlash online. His entire career crumbled. His success had been built on the image of a sweet, clumsy, single man with a charming voice, a persona that attracted countless female fans. But now, that image was completely shattered. The fact that Lucas was secretly married shocked his female fans, who felt betrayed. But the scandal didn't stop there. News of his mistress and love child caused even his male fans to turn on him, calling him unfaithful. The story spiraled, packed with juicy details, hiding his marriage, cheating on his wife, and then finding out the child might not even be his. It became a hot topic online, drawing attention even from people who had never heard of Lucas before. He was the talk of the internet, for all the wrong reasons. Although Lucas posted a carefully worded apology on social media, the backlash didn't let up. His subscriber count plummeted, and eventually, He had no choice but to stop streaming altogether. Some time later, as I was leaving my office building after work, I saw Lucas waiting for me. His face was streaked with tears as he begged, "Jenna, I can't stream anymore. I can't even go outside without people staring or mocking me. Please help me. You're the only one I've ever truly loved. Let's get back together and be husband and wife again." I looked at him coldly and said, "If you keep stalking me, I'll call the police." That was the last time I saw Lucas. Later, I heard through the grapevine that the child Miriam had wasn't Lucas's after all. When the truth came out, it caused even more drama, and the two of them broke up. I didn't let either of them off the hook. I demanded compensation from both. Lucas used up the last of his savings to pay me, while Miriam had to borrow money from her parents to cover her share. As for Miriam, she tried to push the actual father of her child, another streamer, into marrying her, but he rejected her outright. With no other options, she returned to live with her strict parents and is now raising the child there. I genuinely hope the child grows up healthy and happy, despite everything. Lucas's situation only got worse. After paying me, he was left completely broke. The companies he had worked with demanded damages for harming their image, leaving him with nothing. When he turned to his family for help, his decent and responsible parents cut ties with him, ashamed of his behavior. Now, from what I've heard, Lucas lives alone in a rundown apartment, a shadow of the person he once was. Even knowing all this, I feel no sympathy for him. As for me, I've returned to my single life and am fully focused on my work. I couldn't bear to keep living in the condo I shared with Lucas, so I put it up for sale. It's a fresh start, and I feel lighter than ever. As it turned out, property values had gone up over the past few years, so I made a good profit when I sold the condo. I also sold the car that Lucas and Miriam had been using to an acquaintance. With that money, I bought myself a new car. Once everything had settled down, my sister, who had been such a big help, said to me, "Good job, Jenna. Just think of him like a dog that bit you, forget about him and move on. But next time, don't pick a man just because he's cute, okay?" She was right. This whole experience taught me an important lesson. I think I'm done with marriage. I've realized that living for my work suits me much better. Now, I'm living in a new place, a single unit in a tower apartment I recently bought. The best part? This apartment allows pets. Now that my work life has settled down, I plan to finally get the cat I've always dreamed of having. From here on out, I want to focus on the things I have, take care of myself, and live a positive and fulfilling life. Hello, friends. I'm Lauren. I never thought that something as simple as my homemade lasagna would be the first sign of trouble in my marriage. Here I am, in my early 40s, living what I once thought was the Canadian dream, a lovely house in the suburbs, a husband with a successful career, and enough time to enjoy my passion for cooking. That was my life, or at least I thought it was. My husband, Larry, is the classic big corporate guy. He has his tailored suits, his big office in the city, and the confidence that comes with a high-powered job. When we first got married, he couldn't stop complimenting my cooking. "Lauren, this pot roast is amazing," he would say, or "your apple pie could win a prize." Hearing these words made me feel special, like I was adding something good to his life. But recently, something has changed. At first, it was just small things, like a raised eyebrow or a quiet, "it's fine," after tasting my food. Then, he started comparing my cooking to his mom's. "You know, my mom always adds a little nutmeg to her meatloaf," he'd say, or "Mom's pasta is always perfectly al dente. Do you think this is a bit overcooked?" I brushed it off at first, but it began to sting a little. Larry's mother, Kelly, lives only a few blocks away. She's a big presence in our lives, even if we don't see her every day. Every Saturday, we have dinner at her place, and it always feels like a test. She watches everything I put on the table, giving me these looks and making little comments that seem harmless on the surface, but sting when you think about them. She'll smile and say, "Oh, I didn't know you used that much salt," or "Interesting way to season the chicken." It's her way of saying my cooking doesn't match her standards. Then last night, something happened that truly upset me. I had spent hours preparing a roast chicken for dinner, carefully seasoning and roasting it. As I served it, I noticed Larry was taking a picture of the food. I thought maybe he was just proud of what I'd made, wanting to save the memory. But later that night, I couldn't sleep. I went downstairs to get a glass of water, and I saw Larry's phone on the kitchen counter, flashing with a notification. I knew it wasn't right, but I looked. What I found shocked me. There was a whole album of photos. Pictures of almost every meal I had cooked in the past month, all sent to one person, his mom. I scrolled through the messages, my heart sinking. The latest message from her read, "Oh dear, the chicken looks dry. Remind Lauren that a proper brine would fix that. I'll send her my recipe." Reading those words hurt more than I expected. I felt betrayed, not just because he was sharing my efforts with his mom, but because he let her criticize me from afar. It was as if my hard work in the kitchen was never enough, not for Larry, and certainly not for Kelly. That night, I realized this wasn't just about food. It was about feeling unappreciated and overlooked in my own home. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. All this time, every meal I had lovingly prepared was being secretly photographed and sent to Larry's mom for her expert opinion. The betrayal hurt more than any complaint Larry had ever made. I wanted to yell at him, to ask him why he was doing this, but instead, I went back to bed, my mind racing with questions. What else had he been sharing with her? How long had this been going on? And why wasn't I enough for him? As I lay there, staring at the ceiling, I realized that this situation was about more than just food. It was about respect, trust, and how I was slowly losing my sense of self-worth. But what could I do? Larry was my whole world, and the thought of causing a big fight scared me. So I did what I thought a good wife should do. I pretended I hadn't seen those messages, and I told myself I'd try harder tomorrow. The next morning, I got up early and made Larry's favorite breakfast. I wanted to prove to him, and maybe to his mom too, that I could be the perfect wife they seemed to expect. But deep inside, a small voice kept telling me that something had changed. The picture-perfect marriage I thought we had was starting to show cracks, and I wasn't sure how to fix it, or if I even wanted to anymore. Days blurred together as I tried harder and harder to be the perfect wife. But it felt like no matter what I did, it was never enough. My world became smaller, limited to the walls of our home. Each day seemed to give Larry a new reason to criticize me. At a work function, he whispered, "Lauren, stand up straight. You're embarrassing me." Another time, he patted my stomach and suggested I skip dessert, even though I hadn't gained any weight. Each comment, each criticism, chipped away at me bit by bit. My phone buzzed with another missed call from Joyce, my best friend. She wanted to talk, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. I didn't want to admit to her how unhappy I had become or how much I had changed. One rainy afternoon, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. I barely recognized the woman staring back. There were dark circles under my eyes, my hair looked dull, and a permanent frown seemed to have settled on my face. When had I become this shadow of myself? From downstairs, I heard Larry and his mom, Kelly, laughing together. Their laughter was light and carefree, filling the house while I stood there feeling empty. I walked to the top of the stairs and just listened. I felt like I was on the outside, looking into my own life, wondering how things had gone so wrong and if I would ever find a way to feel like myself again. "I don't know how you put up with her," Kelly laughed, her voice sharp. "Remember when she tried to make beef Wellington? What a disaster." "Mom, be nice," Larry chuckled in response. "She tries. It's kind of cute, really, like watching a kid play house." Something inside me broke. I quickly stepped back into the bedroom, feeling my chest tighten and my breath come in short, panicked gasps. The walls seemed to close in, and my vision blurred as tears filled my eyes. I reached for my phone with shaking hands and dialed the one person I could trust completely, Joyce. "Joyce," I managed to say in a choked whisper, I need help." "Oh my God, Lauren. Where have you been? I've been so worried about you." Joyce replied, her voice filled with concern. As soon as she spoke, everything I had been holding in for so long started to pour out. Years of pain, frustration, and feeling small just spilled over. I told her about the constant criticism, the way Larry and Kelly made me feel, and how I felt like I was losing myself in my own marriage. Joyce listened patiently, her calm voice comforting me. "Listen to me," she said firmly. "This isn't normal, Lauren. What Larry's doing is not okay. You need to think about leaving." "But where would I go?" I whispered, feeling scared and lost. "What would I do?" "First things first," she said gently. "I'm texting you the number for a therapist, Dr. Peter. She specializes in helping people in situations like this. Promise me you'll call her." I looked at the number on my phone screen, feeling both nervous and hopeful. It felt like a small light in the middle of all the darkness around me. With shaky hands, I dialed Dr. Peter's office. A kind voice answered, and I took a deep breath, forcing the words out.
"Hi.
"I think I need help." Making that appointment sparked a small, fragile hope in me. For the first time in a long while, I felt like maybe I could find a way to feel whole again. When I walked into Dr. Peter's office, the plain white walls felt oddly comforting, like a blank page where I could begin telling my story. I sat nervously, twisting my fingers as Dr. Peter looked at me with gentle eyes. "Lauren," she said softly, "why don't you tell me why you're here?" Her voice was warm and encouraging. Slowly, I began to open up, sharing all the hurt, manipulation, and self-doubt I'd been carrying. Session by session, Dr. Peter helped me see patterns I hadn't noticed before, showing me how deeply Larry's words and Kelly's judgments had affected me. "Your worth isn't determined by Larry's approval or Kelly's standards," Dr. Peter reminded me. What did Lauren love before all of this? That question struck me deeply. I thought back to a time when I found joy in cooking, not cooking to impress or please, but simply because I loved creating something delicious for myself. I realized I wanted to feel that happiness again. One evening, I stood in the kitchen and decided to cook just for me, letting myself enjoy each step, knowing this was the first small step to reclaiming my life. One day, I decided to make my favorite dessert from childhood, my grandmother's apple pie. As the warm, sweet smell of apples and cinnamon filled the kitchen, I felt a wave of comfort. Just then, Larry walked in, sniffed the air, and frowned. "What's that smell?" "You know I prefer Mom's pecan pie," he said dismissively. For the first time in years, I didn't rush to please him. "This is my grandmother's recipe," I said, my voice steady. "I'm making it for myself." Larry looked shocked, and his expression was almost funny. That small act of standing up for myself gave me courage. I realized it was time to reconnect with someone important in my life, my sister Julie. Over the years, Larry's little manipulations had pushed us apart, but I reached out anyway. Julie welcomed me back with open arms. "I've missed you so much, Laura," she said, pulling me into a tight hug. "I always knew that guy was no good for you." With Julie's support and Dr. Peter's guidance, I began to find myself again. I threw myself into activities I had long forgotten, taking a cooking class, joining a book club, and even sketching plans for a dream cafe that I'd always wanted to open. At home, the tension grew thicker with each step I took toward being myself. Larry's calm, controlled attitude started to crack. One night, after I refused to cancel plans with Julie, he snapped, "Since when do you talk back to me?" I looked him in the eye and replied, "Since I remembered that I'm a person, not your puppet." The words surprised both of us, but I felt stronger than ever. Then, the final breaking point came on a rainy Thursday. I decided to surprise Larry by bringing lunch to his office. I thought maybe we could reconnect somehow, maybe find some peace. But as I walked toward his office door, I heard muffled laughter and a woman's voice say, "Oh, Larry, you're so bad. What would your little wifey say if she knew?" I froze, my heart sinking as I opened the door. There was Larry, wrapped up with Janet, a woman from a rival company. "Lauren." Larry leapt up, his face turning pale. "This isn't what it looks like." "I can explain." But I didn't want to hear any more explanations. I was done with excuses. I turned around and walked out, my heart racing with adrenaline. By the time he got home that evening, I was waiting with divorce papers. "What's this?" he sputtered. "Freedom," I replied calmly. "For both of us." His face twisted in anger. "You'll never survive without me." "You're nothing." I stood my ground, thinking of all the self-worth I'd regained through therapy and the support of those who truly cared about me. "No, Larry," I said firmly. "I'm everything, and it's time I started living like it." As I packed my bags, I spotted my sketches for the cafe I'd dreamed of opening. I had lost so many years to Larry's control, but now, my future was mine to shape. I walked out of that house with my head held high, leaving behind the timid version of myself and stepping into the life of the strong, passionate Lauren I was always meant to be. The day I signed those divorce papers felt like a new beginning for me. Larry's face was filled with a mix of anger and shock as I walked away, but I didn't turn back. I had my fair settlement to my freedom, and my eyes set on the future, a future I would create from scratch. On the opening day of my cafe, Lauren's Haven, I was both nervous and excited. The smell of freshly baked pastries filled the air, and I watched as the first customers slowly came in. My fears faded as I saw smiles spread across their faces with each bite they took. Soon, word spread about my little cafe, and Lauren's Haven became the talk of the town. Food critics loved the cozy, welcoming atmosphere and the delicious dishes, but what meant the most to me were the regular customers who came for comfort and warmth. As the cafe grew, so did I. The insecure woman I had been with Larry was gone. In her place was a confident, happy Lauren, living life her way. I heard through the grapevine that Larry had married Janet, and all I could think was, poor guy. I knew exactly what kind of future awaited him with her. Months went by, and Lauren's Haven continued to thrive. Then, one rainy afternoon, a messy, unsteady figure stumbled into the cafe. It took me a moment to realize it was Larry. His clothes were soaked, and he smelled of cheap alcohol. "Lauren," he slurred, his voice shaky. "You have to help me. Janet, she took everything." Between hiccups and tears, he explained that Janet had tricked him into signing over his money and shares of his business. Now, she was gone, leaving him broke and broken. "Please, Lauren," he begged. "I have nothing left." I looked at him, this man who once controlled my life, and felt a strange mix of pity and satisfaction. "I'm sorry, Larry," I said, my voice calm. "But your problems aren't mine anymore." Just then, as if on cue, Kelly walked in. Her usual proud attitude was gone, replaced with a look of desperation. "Lauren, darling," she pleaded, "surely you can spare something? We are family, after all." I couldn't help but laugh, feeling lighter than ever. "Family?" I said, shaking my head. "You both made it clear that I was never good enough to be family. Please leave. You're disturbing my customers." Larry and Kelly shuffled out into the rain, defeated. As they left, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It was as if the last tie in my old life had finally unraveled. The next morning, as I unlocked the doors to Lauren's Haven, I felt truly free. I had built a new life, one filled with joy, purpose, and self-respect. I had finally let go of the past, and the future was wide open, waiting for me to embrace it. I opened the newspaper one morning and was stunned to see that Lauren's Haven had been named the city's best cafe. I could hardly believe it. My little cafe had become a place that people not only enjoyed but celebrated. It was an incredible feeling, knowing that all my hard work and all the changes I'd gone through had led me to this moment. To celebrate, I invited my closest friends, including Joyce and Julie, along with other wonderful people I'd met along the way. As we gathered at the cafe, the atmosphere was filled with laughter and joy. We shared stories, and everyone seemed genuinely happy for me. It was heartwarming to look around and see my friends enjoying the space I had worked so hard to create. The warm smells of coffee and pastries filled the air as we toasted to the success of Lauren's Haven. At one point, I glanced out the window, and that's when I noticed someone standing outside. It was Larry, wearing a fast food uniform, looking through the glass with a longing expression on his face. He stood there, just watching us, perhaps remembering the life he had once been part of and the happiness he'd given up. I could see regret in his eyes as he saw the joy and success he no longer had. For a brief moment, our eyes met, and then he looked away, disappearing into the crowd. Seeing Larry like that was a powerful reminder of how much had changed. It also made me think about the choices we make and how they shape our lives. Larry had chosen his path, and I had chosen mine. But it wasn't easy getting here. I had faced so many challenges, doubts, and painful moments. Yet, each of those struggles had brought me closer to the life I had always wanted. A life of peace, independence, and fulfillment. If you were in my shoes, what would you have done after finding out about Larry's betrayal? Would you have confronted him immediately, letting out all that hurt and anger? Or would you have taken time to figure out your next steps, waiting until you were ready to take control of your life again? It's a tough question, and there's no easy answer. But I believe that sharing our stories and experiences can help us learn from each other. We each have our own journeys, but sometimes hearing about someone else's choices can give us the courage or clarity we need. If Lauren's journey resonates with you, please share your thoughts in the comments. Have you faced something similar in your life? How did you handle it, or what advice would you give to someone in a similar situation? Your experiences are valuable, and your voice could inspire or help someone who's going through their own struggles. If you enjoyed Lauren's story and want to hear more tales of people overcoming challenges and finding happiness, hit that like button and subscribe. Remember, every story has the power to make a difference, and your voice might be the one that brings hope to someone else's life. Thank you for being part of this journey. Let's keep inspiring one another and finding strength in our own unique paths. Did something happen? The phone finally connected, and I quickly told my husband. It seems someone broke into the room. Everything is a mess. Your room looks fine, but something might be missing. I'm calling the police right now. Wait a moment, my husband said, hesitating before telling me something I didn't expect. I had let my mother stay in the room during our trip. What does that mean? I wondered. My name is Lauren. I'm 32 years old, and I work at a company. I've been working hard since I graduated from university, and I got married just a year ago. My husband is Tyler. He works at a company we partner with. I first met Tyler when I went to a meeting at his company as the new project leader. I was nervous, but he greeted me with a warm smile. Nice to meet you. I'm Tyler. I'm looking forward to working with you, he said. Over time, after a few meetings, we got to know each other better. One day after meeting, Tyler asked me, Lauren, do you have some time now? Would you like to have tea at a cafe? I know. That sounds nice. I'd love to go, I replied. At the cafe, we talked, and I was drawn to his kindness and sense of humor. I felt comfortable opening up to him. Lauren, Tyler said after a while, I've been wanting to get to know you better. How about having dinner together this weekend? When he said that, I felt surprised and happy. Yes, I'd love to, I replied. After that, we went on more dates. Tyler was always kind and listened to me carefully. About 8 months later, after a dinner date, Tyler suddenly confessed his feelings. Lauren, to be honest, I've always been thinking about you. Will you go out with me? I love you. My heart swelled with happiness, and I responded, I love you too, Tyler. I look forward to our future together. From that moment, our romantic relationship officially began. As we continued dating, Tyler proposed a few times, saying, Lauren, let's live together. Let's get married. At first, I wasn't sure. It felt a bit fast. But Tyler's deep love and his wish to build a life together made me feel confident. One day, I finally said, Tyler, I also want to build a future with you. Let's get married. Tyler was overjoyed, and that's when our new life together began. After living alone for so long, sharing meals, watching TV, and having conversations at home with him brought me so much happiness. I am very happy with my married life with Tyler. However, if there's one thing that bothers me, it's my mother-in-law. She had Tyler when she was young, so she's still in her 30s. Tyler was raised by his single mother, and they are very close. They often go shopping together because she invites him, and maybe because of this, she finds it hard to let go of Tyler. She often gets involved in our marriage. For example, when we were picking a dining table for our new apartment, she came along and said, Lauren, how about this table? I think it's wonderful. I hesitated and replied, yes, but it might be a bit too big. She insisted, no, Having a large table will make family meals more comfortable, right, Tyler? Then she turned to him for agreement. Tyler said, "Yeah, maybe a bigger one would be better." With that, my mother-in-law decided. Then it's settled. Also, for some reason, she had a spare key to our house. She often came over without telling us. One day, I came home and she was making clam chowder in the kitchen. "Lauren, welcome home." "I'm making clam chowder today," she said with a smile. I tried to politely say, "Mom, it's a bit troublesome when you come over without telling us first." She smiled back and said, "Don't be so formal. We're family, and it's no problem for me to visit anytime, right?" On top of that, she often asked me to cook for her. "Lauren, next weekend, please come to my house with Tyler and cook the meal." I hesitated and said, "But you're such a good cook. Why do I need to do it?"
It's not about that.
"It's good for young people to work hard. Tyler is looking forward to it." Tyler, looking a little nervous, added, "Yes, Lauren, your cooking is always delicious. I'm looking forward to it." Her interference kept growing, and it started to stress me out. She wasn't just interfering. She often seemed upset with me and would say things that hurt. For example, when we were celebrating Tyler's birthday at our house recently, she showed up without telling us. "Happy birthday," she said when she arrived. "Oh, Mom," Tyler said. She noticed me and said, "Oh, Lauren's here too. Did you have the day off today?" "Yes," I answered. "I took the day off to celebrate Tyler's birthday." She frowned and said, "That's a mistake. Tyler and I were planning to celebrate his birthday just by ourselves. Your presence ruins our plans. I wish you had understood that better." I tried to stay calm and replied, "But I am Tyler's wife now." She shot back, "So, what if you're his wife? Do you think you're more important than his mother? Your marriage is just a piece of paper. Don't get ahead of yourself. I'm his mother, and I brought him into this world." She always seemed to put her relationship with Tyler above mine. She didn't like me much because she loved her son so much. Because of that, she was often cold toward me. I told myself to stay calm and not feel jealous. After all, she raised Tyler alone, which is something to respect. But then something happened that I couldn't ignore. It was last week in the living room. There was an old watch that my grandfather gave me before he passed away. When he got sick and had to close his watch store, he gave me his oldest watch. This antique watch is worth over $40,000, and in his will, my grandfather said I should only sell it if I ever faced financial trouble. After he passed away, this watch became a very special heirloom to me. I kept it in the living room so I could always feel close to him. One day, when my mother-in-law visited, she saw the watch and criticized it. "What is this? Why keep such an old, worn-out watch in the living room like it has any value?" I tried to explain that it was a valuable antique and a special memory from my grandfather, but she didn't seem to understand. The way she looked down on the watch made me feel like she was also looking down on my grandfather and me. It hurt a lot. To protect the watch from more comments, I decided to put it away in a drawer in my room. Later, she asked with a laugh, "What happened to that old watch?" When I told her I had stored it in my room, she seemed happy, like she had won, which only made me feel worse. After she left, Tyler asked if I was okay and tried to comfort me. I told him how hurt I felt by what his mother said. He listened, but his answer was always the same. "My mom does it because she loves me. I'm sorry." I wasn't looking for an apology. I just wanted him to support me when it came to his mother. But I also knew how much he respected her for raising him alone, and I knew he cared about me too. I understood it was hard for him to be stuck between his mother and me, so I couldn't blame him. In the end, I felt like I had no choice but to keep enduring it for his sake. Then, out of the blue, Tyler planned a week-long vacation. I felt so relieved and happy because I knew he was trying to ease the tension with his mother. We went on the trip, just the two of us, and I really enjoyed our time together. For a whole week, I didn't think about my mother-in-law at all. It was such a happy time, and the days passed quickly. Finally, the day came for us to go home. Tyler had to stop by his office first, so I went back home alone. As I walked back, thinking about the happy memories from our trip, I unlocked the door to our home. It was our familiar apartment, but as soon as I stepped into the living room, something felt wrong. I couldn't quite figure out what it was at first. I looked around, feeling uneasy. Wait a minute. I remembered that I had closed the windows and curtains tightly before we left, but now I noticed that the curtains were slightly open and the window lock was undone. The sofa cushions were messy, and the TV remote, usually kept in its case, was neatly placed on the table. It seemed like things had been moved, but not in a way that was obvious. The room was clean, but since I always keep everything in order, these small changes made me feel really uncomfortable. I went to the kitchen and found that some food was missing from the fridge. There were watermarks in the sink like someone had used it recently. What does this mean? I checked the entrance, but nothing seemed out of place. I started to wonder if my mother-in-law, who has a spare key, might have come in without telling us. But it didn't seem like something she would do while we were away, and we wouldn't have left the window unlocked. At the time, I believed she had some respect for our space. Then the idea that it might have been a burglar crossed my mind, but I didn't want to believe it. If it had been a break-in, there would be more mess, right? Everything in the living room seemed fine, so I tried to tell myself that Tyler must have moved something before we left. Even though I tried to convince myself, I couldn't reach Tyler, and my anxiety kept growing. What if someone really had come in? Feeling nervous, I opened the door to my room quietly. The moment I stepped inside, I was shocked by what I saw. My room was completely messed up. Clothes that should have been neatly folded were thrown all over the bed, and underwear was scattered on the floor. The drawers of the dresser were open, and clothes were jumbled up inside. The most shocking part was my desk. Every drawer had been pulled out, and the contents were tossed everywhere. I quickly checked the other rooms, but only my room had been targeted. Why just this room? There was nothing of great value here. Then I thought of the watch my grandfather had left me. No way. Why is it gone? I frantically searched around the desk, but the watch was nowhere to be found. At that moment, I realized the watch had been stolen. It was clear that someone had come in and taken it, but I couldn't understand why they would steal such an old watch. I lost control and quickly tried to call my husband again. This time, the call connected. "Did something happen?" he asked. I hurriedly explained. "It seems someone broke in. The room is a mess. Your room looks fine, but something might be missing. I'm calling the police right now." "Really?" he replied, sounding concerned. "Yes, some food is missing from the fridge too. Someone must have sneaked in."
Wait a minute, he said.
"I want to check it out myself before you call the police. I'll be home soon. Meanwhile, see if anything else is gone." "But I can't wait. This is serious. Some of my things are missing," I exclaimed. Then, my husband said something unexpected in an uneasy tone. "Actually, I let my mother stay in the apartment while we were on the trip." "What do you mean?" I asked, shocked. "Our apartment is close to the station, and it's convenient for her to go downtown. She asked me if she could stay here to keep it safe." "Wait, why would you make such an important decision on your own?" I wasn't informed at all. I was furious. Knowing that I don't get along well with his mother, I felt hurt that he hadn't considered my feelings. But instead of addressing my anger, he just tried to calm me down.
"There's no need to be so upset," he said.
"It's always been like this. My mother comes and goes as she likes. Just deal with it like before." "That's not funny. I can't just endure this. My mother-in-law trashed the room. It's outrageous to just accept it." Suddenly, I heard a voice behind me. "Lauren, why are you so upset?" It was my mother-in-law. "Mom, are you talking to Tyler right now?" I asked, still angry. "Why are you speaking to my son like that?" she asked sharply. "I'm upset because he let you stay in our home without telling me," I replied. "It's not right." "How dare you?" she snapped. "Blaming Tyler is like saying you hate that I'm here." "Honestly, I don't want you coming and going from our house whenever you feel like it," I said, unable to hold back. "You're such a coward, Lauren," she said angrily.
"Don't talk like that."
"You just blame me and get mad at Tyler for no reason, acting like the victim. But it's all in your head." It was clear that I had really been affected. My room had been ransacked, and I knew my mother-in-law had been the one in there. I didn't understand why I was being blamed. What surprised me even more was that Tyler defended her in this situation. After a while, Tyler came home, clearly upset, and sided with his mother, blaming me for overreacting. "I can't believe this, Lauren," he said. "This is unacceptable." I couldn't stand it anymore. I took both Tyler and his mother into my room to show them the mess. Tyler couldn't hide his shock when he saw the state of the room. But my mother-in-law didn't seem surprised at all, almost like she already knew what had happened. It became obvious she was the one responsible. "Mom, be honest. Did you do this?" Tyler asked. "Even if the room was messy, you're exaggerating." "It's not that bad," she said dismissively. "I just forgot to clean up. That's all," my mother-in-law said casually. "If I clean it now, there won't be a problem, right? I was going to do it later anyway." "You're being too sensitive." She admitted she was the one who made the mess but showed no regret at all. Tyler stood there, looking uncomfortable, not saying anything. Then she started defending herself. "I borrowed Lauren's clothes because I left mine at home. We're not that different in size, so I thought it would be okay. We're family, so getting upset over this seems unreasonable, don't you think?" To my surprise, Tyler began to agree with her. "I think so. You can't blame everything on my mom just because a few things are missing. Borrowing things in a family is normal, and it's strange not to forgive a little mess." I had been hoping for an apology from both of them. Instead, it was the opposite. Tyler even asked me to apologize to his mother for my rude words and attitude, even though it was clear she had messed up my room. Seeing him support her so strongly made my feelings for him fade. I started feeling empty inside. I had always believed Tyler cared for me just as much as he did for his mother, but the truth was different. To avoid any criticism toward himself, he eagerly blamed me and clearly took her side. I felt neglected and heartbroken, and in that moment, I decided to stand up for myself. I couldn't keep holding back for Tyler's sake anymore. Before Tyler returned, I had already prepared my next move. I turned to my mother-in-law and asked directly, "Where did you take my watch?" She looked nervous but answered, "I don't know anything about a watch. Why would I care about that old thing?" But her reaction gave her away. I was sure she had taken it. No matter what Tyler said, I wasn't going to forgive her. I pressed her again. "You admit you made a mess in this room, right? There are things missing, and you must know where they are." Tyler jumped in to defend her. "Hey, stop accusing my mom. If she says she didn't take it, is it worth getting this upset over just a watch? If you really want to watch that badly, I'll buy you a new one, so let's drop this." "Stop interfering, Tyler," I said firmly. "That watch is the only thing I have left from my grandfather, and it's irreplaceable. I won't give up until I get it back." "I haven't stolen anything. You're being too noisy," my mother-in-law said defensively. "It's fine to be noisy if you didn't steal it," I replied. "Then we have to consider that someone else broke in, and if that's the case, I need to call the police immediately. They can investigate, take fingerprints, and help us find the thief quickly." I grabbed my phone and started walking out of the room. At that moment, my mother-in-law rushed to stop me. "Wait, please wait. There's no need to call the police. To be honest, I did borrow it, but I'll return it in a week, okay? Just a moment ago, you said you knew nothing about it," I said. "And please don't use the word borrowed. Taking something without permission is stealing. You've just admitted to stealing it. Where is the watch? It's very important to me, and I need it back now. I can't wait a week." She started sweating, looking more and more nervous. "It's impossible," she said. "Why is that?" I asked, feeling a sense of dread. "Because I already sold it to a pawn shop."
"What?
"Really? You sold it?" "Yes, it sold for $40,000. Can you believe it? I didn't think it was worth that much." "Stop joking. Can you return the $40,000 right now?" I demanded. "I'll go to the pawn shop myself to get it back." Well, I'm sorry, but that's impossible," she stammered. "I've already spent most of the money, and there's only a little left. You'll have to find the money yourself." Seeing her mocking and disrespectful attitude, I realized there was no point in continuing the conversation. I made up my mind to take the final step. "I see. This was your last chance," I said calmly. I dialed the police. "Hello, I'm the person who called earlier. Unfortunately, a theft has occurred, and the person responsible is here. Please come right away." After the call, Tyler and his mother rushed over to me in a panic. "Who did you just call?" they asked. I called the police, I explained. I already told them about the situation, and they advised me to check things out first. Now that it's clear you stole my watch and sold it without permission, I've reported it. Not only did you steal it, but you also sold it and used the money for yourself. That's a crime. What are you talking about? She snapped. I was helping you. I turned that old, unnecessary item into cash for you, and instead of being thankful, you called the police. I'm shocked. Lauren, isn't this going too far? Tyler added. My mother is your family too. Family? I said, feeling hurt. I can't consider someone who steals my things and doesn't feel bad about it as family. She's a criminal. A criminal? No. I've explained it many times, she protested, but I had already made my decision. I haven't done anything, my mother-in-law protested. Well, all of this conversation has been recorded, and I plan to give it to the police as evidence, I replied calmly. You shouldn't underestimate the police. Once they check the fingerprints and the pawn shop's camera footage, it will be clear that you are the culprit. Continuing to hide it will only make things worse for you. As I spoke, a cold smile on my face, both my mother-in-law and my husband showed their anger. This is ridiculous. Just because I borrowed it, it's come to this? Are you serious? She fumed. My husband added, if you do this, I won't hesitate to consider divorce. Is that what you want? You'll be in trouble too if we get a divorce. It seemed they thought the word divorce would scare me into backing down. But I stayed calm and replied, I don't mind at all. What's more troubling is that your mother is a criminal. I've been ready for divorce from the start. Wait, please. The divorce talk was just a joke, my husband said quickly, sounding panicked. I got too emotional. Please reconsider. I'll apologize as many times as you want. Just please overlook my mother's actions. Tears appeared in his eyes as he pleaded. Ironically, it was his mother who should have been apologizing, but she just stood there with her arms crossed, staring at me as if to intimidate me. Your excuses are pointless, I said firmly. I've forgiven both of you many times, but you always ignore my feelings and keep defending her. This time, I won't forgive either of you. My firm stance left my husband speechless and my mother-in-law furious. Actually, I continued, before this incident with the watch, I had already been hurt by your mother several times. After one payday, $1,000 I had left at home went missing. I knew she had been around, but I didn't have proof. Since then, I've been deliberately leaving fake bills around the house. Did you know that? She began to panic, visibly sweating. What should I do? What should I do? She muttered, as the reality of the situation set in. When the police arrived, I explained everything. Tyler and his mother tried to argue, saying things like, this is just a family matter, and my wife is exaggerating, but based on the condition of the room and the recorded conversation, the police took my mother-in-law into custody on suspicion of theft. Tyler went to the police station with her, escorted by an officer. Afterward, I headed to the pawn shop my mother-in-law had mentioned. At the shop, there was clear evidence that she had sold the watch. The surveillance footage confirmed it. Luckily, my grandfather's watch had not been sold yet and was still there. Thanks to the officer's help, I was able to get it back. I was able to get back my grandfather's watch. It wasn't easy to confront my husband and mother-in-law, but I believe calling the police was the right thing to do. When I held the watch again, it felt like my grandfather was proud of me. After that, the divorce with my husband was finalized. He begged me to avoid the divorce and asked me to help his mother, but I ignored his pleas. I sometimes see him at work, but I don't talk to him, and my supervisor, who understands the situation, handles things professionally. Communication with him was done strictly through lawyers, and in the end, my husband accepted the divorce. The police gathered more evidence, including the pawn shop clerk's testimony, which confirmed my mother-in-law's guilt. She is now serving a 4-year prison sentence. At first, her actions were just to bother me, but when she found out the watch was worth a lot of money, she got greedy and spent it all. Because of that, she lost her part-time job and will have a hard time finding work after she gets out of prison. What started as minor harassment turned into a serious crime that ruined her life. The foolishness of her actions is shocking. Since she had no savings, the $40,000 to repay the pawn shop fell on my ex-husband. He's now working hard to pay for his mother's living expenses, and everyone at his workplace knows about our divorce and what his mother did. This has made his life difficult and uncomfortable. Meanwhile, I am finally free from the stress caused by my ex-husband and his mother. I'm thoroughly enjoying my independence. While my marriage didn't turn out as I had hoped, being able to protect the valuable watch from my beloved grandfather is a big comfort to me. Right now, I'm focusing more on myself than on romantic relationships, and I'm excited to enjoy my single life. I'm also looking for new hobbies and interests. A new chapter in my life is starting, and after everything I've been through, I'm dedicated to taking care of myself and living life fully. I plan to fill my days with hope and happiness and live a positive, active life. I'm living a happy and settled life after marrying into a wealthy family. Patrick, however, couldn't resist mocking my supposedly simple lifestyle as we sat in the hotel lobby. His sharp words broke the peaceful moment, and he taunted me with his latest news. He proudly shared that his new wife is the daughter of the president of Goldsmith Enterprises. Patrick laughed, his tone full of pride, but when he mentioned Goldsmith Enterprises, something clicked for me. I knew that name, though I couldn't place it at first. Then it hit me. Patrick kept bragging, unaware of the irony I found in his words. My name is Emma, I'm 40 years old, and I live a content life with my husband, Patrick. I work in my family's real estate business, mostly handling office duties, while my father, the company president, manages the big decisions. As an only child, I know I'm expected to lead the company one day. Even with this huge responsibility ahead, I've managed to keep a good balance between my personal and professional life, especially when it comes to Patrick. Patrick finished high school and works at a moving company, a tough job that I deeply respect. To avoid making him feel uncomfortable, I rarely talk about my university degree or my future role as the president of our business. Patrick and I met in college through a mutual friend. After she had Patrick's company handle her move, she introduced us. At first, Patrick was interested in her, but when she turned him down, he and I got to know each other better. His laid-back attitude complemented my organized personality, and our relationship grew stronger. We got married in our late 20s after a short courtship, and our marriage has been smooth ever since. Patrick's parents welcomed me warmly, which was a refreshing change from the in-law troubles some of my friends face. Even though Patrick's job is physically demanding and keeps him out late, he has always stayed dedicated to our relationship. On his hardest days, he never forgets to thank me for waiting up to have dinner with him, and that means everything to me. I felt lucky to have a loving husband, but after a year of marriage, things started to change. One night, as we were getting ready for bed, Patrick suddenly brought up having children. His tone was sharp, which caught me off guard. I had thought about starting a family too, and even though we weren't actively trying, I believed it would happen when the time was right. I calmly reassured him, saying, "It's only been a year. There's no need to rush." I wanted kids, but I knew stressing about it wouldn't help. Trying to ease the tension, I kept my tone light, but Patrick seemed unusually serious. He even mentioned statistics saying, there's about a 97% chance of getting pregnant within a year if a couple isn't using birth control. I didn't know much about those numbers, but they seemed high to me. To keep things practical, I suggested, if you're worried, maybe we should both get tested. That way, we'll know for sure. His reaction, however, was unexpectedly harsh. "What are you trying to say? That it's my fault," he snapped. "It's usually the woman's fault." His words stung, and it was the first time he had spoken to me so coldly. I hadn't accused him of anything. I only wanted us to work together on this. But he took it as an attack and made it clear he thought I was the problem. "It's definitely the woman's fault," he added, as if to drive the point home. I wanted to say something, but I was too shocked. All I could manage was, "Of course, I'll get tested." But Patrick didn't let it go. "I'm too busy with work for that. You don't even have a real job. You're just coasting at your dad's company," he said bitterly. His words hurt deeply. I wasn't just coasting. I was learning everything I could from my father to prepare for the day I'd take over the company. That night, we barely spoke, and we went to bed with our backs turned, the silence heavy between us. From that point on, Patrick's attitude toward me changed. He became distant and bitter. One evening, I came home late after a meeting with my father to discuss the future of the business. Patrick was furious when I arrived. "Dinner isn't ready," he snapped. "I just got home 25 minutes ago. I'll start cooking now. Please wait a little," I explained hurriedly. But Patrick dismissed my explanation with a bitter remark. That's typical of a small company's boss's daughter. He had no idea how large my father's company was or the responsibilities I was preparing for. My father's business wasn't small. It was a major real estate company with hundreds of employees. Yet Patrick's assumptions and growing bitterness made life harder. The warmth and support we once shared felt like a distant memory. I rushed to the kitchen to make dinner, hoping to avoid another argument, but the tension in the air was undeniable. Each day felt heavier, and the love that once held us together seemed to fade a little more. I offered to cook right away and suggested, "Have a drink and relax while you wait," knowing that alcohol often calmed him. It broke my heart that our relationship seemed to rely on his evening drinks to avoid arguments. I hated being scolded, but if it kept the peace, even for a little while, I reluctantly accepted it as necessary. The next morning, Patrick was still cold toward me. As he left for work, his parting words were sharp. "Make sure dinner's ready when I get home." I let out a deep sigh and focused on the day ahead. I had taken the day off to visit the gynecologist for fertility testing, something Patrick had insisted on but refused to do himself. It was frustrating to go through it alone, but I didn't want to argue. If the issue was with me, I wanted to address it quickly, knowing time wasn't on my side. At the clinic, the waiting room was packed, and I had to sit for over an hour before my appointment. After several tests, the doctor told me the results would be available at my next visit. The thought that I might be the reason for our struggles to conceive was hard to bear, but I was ready to take any steps necessary to fix it. That evening, when Patrick came home, I told him, "I went for the fertility test today." His response was dismissive. "Figures. If the problem's with you, it's good you're getting tested. Just let me know the results." His words stung. The assumption that it was my fault hurt deeply, but I stayed quiet. 6 years passed and I turned 40. We still hadn't been able to have a child, and Patrick seemed to have given up on the idea of being a father. His late nights out became more frequent, and sometimes he wouldn't come home at all. When he did, he'd casually explain he'd been out drinking and singing karaoke until dawn. It felt like he was acting more like a carefree college student than a responsible husband, and it was incredibly frustrating. Meanwhile, my work had become more demanding, and the dream of starting a family had to be pushed aside. But Patrick's recent behavior was becoming unbearable. His disregard for our marriage was clear, and the distance between us grew every day. One afternoon, on Patrick's day off, he left the house, forgetting his phone in the living room. I picked it up to put it in his room, but just then, it started ringing. The caller ID displayed a name, Rachel. Assuming she was a colleague, I answered to let her know Patrick wasn't home. "Hey, Patrick, you're late," a woman's voice said. "I've been waiting for 55 minutes. Hurry up, or we'll miss the park opening." "We haven't had a date in so long," a playful voice said on the other end of the call. The word date hit me like a punch, and I quickly hung up, my heart pounding. This wasn't just a colleague. This woman was someone Patrick was seeing romantically. Holding his phone tightly, I felt a wave of shock and anger. While I was struggling with potential infertility, Patrick had been having an affair. His recent coldness and distance suddenly made sense. I stood there, trembling, overwhelmed by the pain of his betrayal. It was one thing to feel like he didn't need me anymore, but discovering his unfaithfulness made it all unbearable. Determined to face this head-on, I decided to gather evidence. Unlocking his phone with his birth date was easy. What I found in his call history and messages left me sick to my stomach. Dozens of texts with Rachel, filled with affectionate and intimate words. My hands shook as I took photos of everything with my own phone before putting his device back where I found it, pretending nothing had changed. For a month, I carried on in this eerie, broken marriage, holding the weight of what I knew. Then one day, my father, the president of our company, called me into his office. "I need to talk to you about something important," he said with a serious tone. His words made me brace myself for bad news, adding to the stress I was already under. That evening, as if sensing what was coming, Patrick suggested we consider separating. I had already been thinking about divorce because of his betrayal, so his suggestion caught me off guard, but it also felt convenient. Yes, let's divorce, I said without hesitation. Patrick seemed surprised by how quickly I agreed, but it was clear he was relieved, likely excited about his future with Rachel. Despite the sting of his reaction, I calmly signed the divorce papers he gave me. I can file these tomorrow. I'll be moving out, he said casually. Are you sure about the mortgage? I asked, knowing his income wasn't enough to handle the payments. Patrick brushed off my concern, either overconfident or naive about his financial situation. Given what he had done, I felt no obligation to help him figure it out. A few days later, I moved back into my parents' house. They were worried about me at first, but when I told them about Patrick's affair, their concern turned to anger. They fully supported my decision to leave him, reassuring me over and over that walking away was the best thing I could do. To distract myself from the pain of my failed marriage, I threw myself into work. The days and weeks blurred together as I buried myself in projects and responsibilities. Before I knew it, a year had passed. One evening, exhausted from work, I could feel the weight of it all beginning to lift, as if I was finally ready to start again. My father noticed how drained I was and suggested, "Why don't you take a trip? It's going to get busy next month." He was genuinely concerned about me, and I appreciated his suggestion. Feeling mentally exhausted, I decided to take his advice and go on a solo trip to the South Carolina. I needed a change of scenery and some peace. The crisp, refreshing air of the South Carolina felt like it was healing my tired spirit. The locals were warm and friendly, and their kindness helped me slowly feel better. After a few days, I decided to extend my trip and booked a stay in Baltimore at a well-known hotel. I wanted to treat myself to the best experience possible. When I arrived, I checked in and settled in the lobby with a welcome drink. The exhaustion from my travels began to fade, and I felt truly relaxed for the first time in a long while. I even joked to myself about moving to Baltimore. It felt so peaceful. But just as I was beginning to feel at ease, a familiar voice broke the calm.
Huh?
What are you doing here? Startled, I turned to see Patrick walking into the lobby with 2 large suitcases. Seeing my ex-husband was the last thing I expected on this trip. The serene atmosphere of the elegant hotel lobby was suddenly shattered. Beside him was a young woman, probably in her early 30s. She had flawless skin, bold makeup, and striking red nails that stood out sharply against the chilly weather. Her outfit was just as bold, a short skirt, completely unsuitable for the cold. My heart sank as my eyes locked on them. Patrick and the woman looked every bit like a couple, and I couldn't stop myself from blurting out, "Why are you here? And who is she?" Patrick seemed unbothered by my question. In fact, he looked almost excited as he replied, "Oh, let me introduce you. This is Rachel, my new wife. We're on our honeymoon. Guess what? She's the daughter of a wealthy businessman." The name Rachel hit me hard. She was the same woman I'd heard on that phone call months ago. My chest tightened as I struggled to process what I was seeing. Patrick's pride in marrying someone so young and wealthy was painfully obvious. "You're here alone? That's sad," Patrick sneered, his tone dripping with disdain. Rachel smirked, her eyes scanning me critically. "Hey, Patrick, is this your ex-wife?" she asked, her voice sharp. "She looks old." "Hurry up with the check-in," she added, clearly annoyed. I bit back my emotions and tried to stay calm, even as Patrick casually wrapped an arm around her and laughed. "Yeah, I'm set for life now. Marrying into money is the best decision I ever made," he gloated. "You keep struggling in your little modest life." His loud, high-pitched laugh echoed through the lobby, completely ruining the peace I had been enjoying moments earlier. As he continued to flaunt his new life, he added, "Oh, by the way, Rachel is the daughter of Goldsmith. You know, Goldsmith Enterprises." The mention of Goldsmith Enterprises rang a bell, stirring something in my memory. I couldn't quite place it at first, but I knew the name meant something significant. I remembered everything just as Patrick's face lit up with excitement. Impressive, huh? Her family's loaded. They even paid off her house mortgage right away. Thanks for making the divorce so easy, Emma, he said sarcastically. Remaining calm, I replied, yeah, I know them. They're in that big building Baltimore loft apartments, right? I've been there. My tone was casual, not giving him the reaction he probably expected. Patrick looked surprised. Oh, you've been there? Well, her family owns a huge company, so breaking up with you is clearly the right choice, he smirked smugly. I nodded, still calm. That building? It's actually part of our real estate holdings, I said casually, as if it was a minor detail. Patrick and Rachel both froze, their expressions shifting to confusion. What do you mean our real estate? They asked in unison. That building is rented by my father for his most prestigious office, I explained with a serene smile. I'm not sure if your company is in real estate, but it's definitely not a shabby building. Their confusion deepened, and I could feel their skepticism. I paused for a moment before adding, yes, I know how impressive it is. I was there when my father purchased that building for around $800 million. Recently, he's been complaining about a tenant who hasn't paid their rent. Turns out it's your company. Their faces were priceless, shock and disbelief. Rachel broke the silence with a laugh, though it was nervous and hollow. That can't be true. Our company's doing great, she insisted, trying to dismiss my claim. But the unease in her eyes told another story. Despite feeling shaken by seeing Patrick with his new wife, I refused to be drawn into their drama. Rachel's loud denial only added to the tension, her dismissive tone hinting that she thought I was lying to create trouble. I decided to put the matter to rest once and for all. Pulling out my phone right there in the lobby, I called my father. Dad, I'm here with the daughter of Goldsmith Enterprises, I said. Can you send me a copy of that rent reminder notice? Within minutes, my phone buzzed. My father had sent a crystal-clear image of the notice, addressed to Goldsmith Enterprises, showing 5 months of unpaid rent. I turned the screen to face Patrick and Rachel. See? If the rent isn't paid soon, we might have to consider legal action, I said, my voice calm but firm. Patrick and Rachel stared at the image, their confidence draining. Rachel's earlier laughter was gone, replaced by a mix of disbelief and panic. Patrick looked like he didn't know what to say. What are you going to do now? I asked quietly, holding their gaze. I asked calmly, watching as Rachel's confidence faltered. She mumbled, come to think of it, Dad has been really stressed lately, talking about slow sales and letting employees go. Patrick, however, went into full denial, his voice rising. You're just making this up to split us up, aren't you? You're still that kind of person, always trying to get back at me for moving on. Your tactics are disgusting, he shouted, his tone sharp and accusing. I stepped back, stunned by his outburst. His words dragged up painful memories of our marriage and the cruel things he used to say when times were tough. But this time, I wasn't the same person who stayed silent. What are you even talking about, Patrick? I said firmly, my voice steady. Do you seriously think I still have feelings for you? That's laughable. I've long moved on from a man like you. In fact, I feel sorry for Rachel, getting involved with someone so shallow. His face turned red with anger as I continued. Did you marry her just for her money? You had shallow reasons for marrying me, too, like wanting to settle down quickly and have kids. And who was it that left me when we couldn't have children? Who called me useless because I was infertile? You did. You're to blame for everything. Yet you think I'd waste another thought on you? You're delusional. Patrick's anger boiled over. You're just an arrogant old hag. You probably can't even get married or have kids anymore. Rachel and I are planning to have a baby right after this trip, he spat, his voice desperate and bitter. It was then I decided to end his assumptions for good. I took a deep breath and said calmly, oh, I didn't mention it, but I'm 6 months pregnant. I'm in the stable phase now. So my dad suggested I take this trip to relax. Patrick's expression froze, his bravado vanishing in an instant. Pregnant, he stammered, his voice cracking. That's right, I continued. After our divorce, I found someone who truly supports me. He's my boss at work and also a trusted subordinate of my father. He's been there for me, both personally and professionally. We got married quickly, and just 6 months ago, I found out I was pregnant. It was a grand celebration. My father and the company were overjoyed. Patrick's face turned pale as he processed what I'd just said. "You're pregnant? Were you using birth control with me?" he asked, his question so absurd that it almost made me laugh. I felt a strange mix of pity and relief as I looked at him. "My life has moved far beyond the chaos you brought into it, Patrick," I said softly but firmly. "You can keep living in your delusions, but I've built something better for myself, something you'll never be a part of." In that moment, I felt lighter than I had in years. Patrick's desperate attempts to regain control only confirmed what I already knew. I had finally let go of everything he represented. My life was now my own, and it was brighter than ever. I felt confident about my future, supported by my new husband and the responsibility of preparing to lead my father's company. My father planned to retire soon due to health reasons, and I was ready to step up. My life, once tied to Patrick's, was now entirely my own, a future filled with new beginnings and free from his shadow. Patrick's confusion was obvious as he stomped his feet, struggling to process everything. "Birth control? I never did that. Remember, I told you I went for fertility tests and they found no issues with me. So, the problem wasn't just me," I said bluntly. His face twisted with the realization and he muttered, "Does that mean Rachel and I can't have kids? Why did I divorce you to marry Rachel?" His shoulders slumped and he looked utterly defeated. "What do you mean? Why?" Rachel snapped, her voice sharp. "You knew this already. You felt betrayed because you thought it was her fault." Her anger flared as Patrick's self-centered logic unraveled. I decided there was no point in staying any longer. "From now on, keep your life separate from mine," I said firmly. "As for the rent for Goldsmith Enterprises, I expect it to be paid in full. If not, we'll have to take legal action." "I have nothing more to say. Goodbye." Without waiting for a response, I turned and walked away, leaving Patrick and Rachel arguing in the middle of the lobby. I returned to my hotel room with a sense of peace, knowing I had closed that chapter of my life. When I got home from the trip, my husband greeted me with a warm smile. "Welcome back. I'm sorry I couldn't help around the house." "Was everything okay?" he asked. "Of course, everything was fine," I replied, smiling back. "I'm just glad I got to relax." "Thank you for taking care of everything," he said with genuine warmth. His smile was comforting, and I felt reassured, as I did every day since marrying him. Thoughts of Patrick had faded far into the background. After that incident, I never saw Patrick again. However, through my father's business contacts, I heard about what happened to Patrick and Rachel. Things had gone downhill for them. Patrick, who believed he had married into wealth, discovered that Goldsmith Enterprises was drowning in debt. News broke across TV channels about an employee at Goldsmith Enterprises embezzling millions from clients. Rachel's father had known about the fraud but tried to cover it up to protect the company's reputation. When the scandal became public, the company's stock plummeted and their credibility was destroyed. Most of their employees left, and it was clear they couldn't recover. They couldn't even pay their overdue rent. Hearing about their downfall only reaffirmed my relief at having moved on. That chapter of my life was firmly closed. Now, I was focused on a future filled with stability, love, and genuine support from my husband. It was a life Patrick could never have given me, and I couldn't be more grateful to be where I was. I smoothed my skirt and took a deep breath before pushing open the heavy oak door to Tyler's new office. The sign on the door, "Tyler Perry, President," still looked shiny and new. My husband glanced up from his computer, looking stressed. "Mary, I'm really busy." "What is it?" he said, barely looking up. I forced a smile. "The Henderson account files are ready for you to review, and the staff meeting starts in 10 minutes. Tyler waved his hand, brushing it off. "Cancel it. I have more important things to do." "But, Tyler, everyone's been working hard all week to get ready for this meeting. They're expecting you to be there." I said cancel it, he snapped, his eyes still on the computer. That's an order, not a request. I held back my frustration and nodded quickly before leaving the room. As I closed the door, I saw Tyler's reflection in the window. He was already focused back on his work, not noticing how hurt I felt. In the hallway, I leaned against the wall, trying to calm my racing heart. This didn't feel like the Tyler I married. The man I loved used to be passionate about architecture and cared deeply for his team. Now, with this new title, it seemed like he was letting it all go to his head. Everything okay, Marys? I looked up to see Scott, Tyler's father, watching me with concern. Even though he was retired, he still visited the office regularly. I straightened up, forcing another smile. Of course. It's just a busy morning. How are you, Scott? He looked at me closely. I'm fine, but you don't look okay. What's Tyler done now? I hesitated, feeling torn between staying loyal to Tyler and my growing frustration. It's nothing really. Tyler's just adjusting to his new role. Scott's expression grew serious. Adjusting or letting it go to his head? Before I could answer, Tyler's voice boomed from his office. Mary, where are those files? I grabbed the folder from my desk and gave Scott an apologetic look. Duty calls. As I went back into Tyler's office, he barely looked up. Finally, just leave them there and close the door on your way out. Tyler, I said, gathering my courage, the team really needs you at this meeting. They've worked hard on. He slammed his hand on the desk. For God's sake, Mary, I'm the president now. I decide what's important, not you or anyone else.
Got it.
I flinched, stunned by his outburst. I'm just trying to help, Tyler. This company means everything to your father, and I promised him I'd. My father isn't in charge anymore, Tyler interrupted, his tone icy. I am. And if you can't handle that, maybe you shouldn't be here either. His words felt like a slap. I looked at him, searching for any trace of the man I'd fallen in love with, but all I saw was a stranger, lost in power and pride. Fine, I whispered. I said quietly, I'll cancel the meeting. As I turned to leave, Tyler's phone buzzed. He answered it, and his voice changed instantly to a smooth, charming tone. Carol, darling. Yes, I can't wait for our business lunch. See you soon, he said. My hand froze on the door handle. Carol. I didn't know the name, but the way he said it sent a chill down my spine. I glanced back and saw a sly smile on his face before he noticed me looking. What? He snapped. Don't you have work to do? I nodded without saying a word and quickly left his office, my mind spinning. Outside, our team's disappointed faces met me as I announced the meeting was canceled, but their frustration was nothing compared to the worry growing in my chest. Who is Carol? And what kind of business lunch made my husband smile like that? As I sat down at my desk, I realized with a sinking feeling that both my marriage and the company might be facing a storm we weren't ready for. The next morning, I arrived early, determined to fix what I could from yesterday. As I walked through the office, I could feel the tension in the air. Conversation stopped as I passed, replaced by forced smiles and awkward nods. Morning, Mary, Evelyn, our lead designer, called out. Any news on rescheduling the meetings? I hesitated, torn between being honest and being careful with my words. I'm working on it, Evelyn. Tyler's still adjusting to his new role. Evelyn raised an eyebrow. Adjusting? Is that what we're calling it now? Before I could respond, Tyler's voice boomed from his office. Mary, my office now. I hurried to his door, bracing myself. He was pacing, his frustration clear. What the hell is this? He asked, shoving a stack of papers at me. I looked at the top sheet and felt my heart drop. It was a formal complaint from the design team, mentioning Tyler's absence from key meetings and delays in project approvals. Tyler, they're just frustrated. If we could set up a meeting to talk about their concerns? Their concerns? He interrupted, scoffing. I'm running a business, not a daycare. If they can't handle the pressure, they can leave. But, Tyler, these are your father's most trusted employees. They've been with the company for years. His eyes flashed with anger. My father isn't in charge anymore. I am. And I won't let a bunch of whiny designers question my authority. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Tyler, please. This doesn't feel like you. What's really going on? For a moment, I saw a flicker of the old Tyler, vulnerable, unsure, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared. Nothing's going on, he snapped. Just do your job and keep them in line. That's what I'm paying you for, isn't it? His words hurt more than he realized. I wasn't just another employee. I thought I was Tyler's partner, his wife. But now I wasn't so sure. Just as I was turning to leave, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and a sly smile spread across his face. I'm heading out for lunch.
Hold my calls, he said.
But Tyler, we have the client meeting at 2, I reminded him. Reschedule it, he said, already halfway out the door. I watched him go, feeling a knot form in my stomach. This wasn't just about work anymore. Something felt very wrong. Back at my desk, I threw myself into damage control, dealing with upset clients and calming frustrated staff. By the afternoon, I was exhausted and on edge. A gentle knock on my cubicle startled me. I looked up to see Scott, his face filled with concern. Mary, dear, got a minute? I nodded, grateful for the break. Scott sat across from me, his eyes kind but serious. I've been hearing things, he said softly, about Tyler, about how he's running the company. I swallowed, unsure of what to say. Scott had put his life's work into this company and trusted Tyler to lead it. How could I tell him it was falling apart? Scott, I started, but he raised a hand to stop me. You don't have to protect him, Mary, not from me. I've known something was wrong for a while now. I hoped he'd grow into the role. Tears stung my eyes. I don't know what to do, I whispered.
He won't listen to me.
He's pushing everyone away. Scott reached across the desk, squeezing my hand. We'll figure this out, Mary.
Together.
This company, this family, it means everything to me. I won't let Tyler destroy it. Just then, Tyler's voice boomed through the office. Where the hell is everyone? Don't we have work to do? Scott and I shared a look. The storm was far from over. I stood, ready to face whatever mess Tyler had caused this time. Scott's words, together, echoed in my mind. For the first time in weeks, I felt a small glimmer of hope. But as I rounded the corner, I saw Tyler standing there, his tie crooked and a smudge of lipstick on his collar. That glimmer of hope vanished. The man I loved was slipping away, and I felt powerless to stop it. Later, I trudged up the driveway, exhausted from another day of trying to keep things together at the office. All I wanted was a hot bath and a glass of wine. But as I reached for my keys, the front door swung open. A stunning blonde stepped out, her lipstick slightly smudged and her blouse buttoned carelessly. She froze when she saw me, her eyes widening for a moment before she quickly recovered. Oh, you must be Mary, she said smoothly. I'm Carol, Tyler's consultant. My world spun. Carol, the name from Tyler's phone call, the lipstick on his collar. It all came together with painful clarity. Consultant. I managed to speak, my voice barely above a whisper. Carol's lips curled into a sly smile. Oh yes, Tyler and I have been working very closely together. He's quite the visionary, you know. Before I could respond, Tyler appeared in the doorway, his face pale. Mary, you're home early, he stammered. I searched his face for any sign of guilt or remorse, but all I saw was panic and calculation. Carol was just leaving, he said quickly, guiding her toward her car. They exchanged a knowing glance before she drove off, leaving me alone with a man I suddenly felt I didn't know at all. I brushed past Tyler and went inside, my mind racing. He followed, already trying to explain himself. Mary, it's not what you think. Carol's just helping with some new projects. We were brainstorming ideas. I turned to him, my voice rising. Don't lie to me, Tyler, not now. He hesitated, his confidence crumbling. I didn't mean for this to happen. It just did. It just happened? I said, my voice shaking. Like you just happened to ignore your responsibilities at work? Like you just happened to treat our employees, our friends, like they don't matter? Tyler's face hardened. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Dad left me with shoes I can't fill. I'm doing the best I can. By having an affair? By dragging the company down. I shot back. He stopped, Frustration etched on his face. Look, things got complicated, but I can fix this. We can fix this. I let out a bitter laugh. We? There is no we anymore, Tyler. You made sure of that. As I said it, I realized it was true. Whatever we had, our marriage, our partnership, was gone, shattered by his betrayal and my own blind trust. Just then, Tyler's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, looking torn. It's Carol, isn't it? I said quietly.
He didn't deny it.
Mary, please let me explain. But I was done listening. Done making excuses for him. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. Where are you going? Tyler called after me. Away from you, I replied. I need to think. As I drove through the dark streets, tears blurred my vision. How had it come to this? The man I loved, the life we built, it was all crumbling around me. My phone rang, and Scott's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated, then answered. Mary, are you all right? You left the office so quickly, he said, his voice full of concern. His kindness broke through my walls, and suddenly, everything spilled out. Tyler's affair, the state of the company, my broken heart. Scott listened silently. When I finished, he spoke softly. Oh, Mary, I'm so sorry. This is my fault. I never should have put so much pressure on Tyler. It's not your fault, I insisted. Tyler made his own choices. Maybe, Scott sighed, but now we have to make ours. Come to my house. We'll figure this out together. I drove towards Scott's neighborhood, feeling a strange sense of calm. Tyler's betrayal was out in the open now, but I wasn't alone. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of strength return. Whatever came next, I would face it head-on. No more excuses, no more blind loyalty. It was time to stand up for myself and for the company that had become my second home. The next morning, I walked into the office with my head held high, ignoring the whispers and sidelong glances. My talk with Scott last night had given me a new determination, but nothing could have prepared me for what I saw as I turned the corner. In the middle of the office stood Tyler, his arm around Carol's waist. She wore a pencil skirt and blouse that looked like something I would have worn just a few months ago. Everyone, Tyler announced, his voice loud and confident, I'd like you to meet Carol. She'll be joining our team as a special consultant. My heart pounded as I locked eyes with Tyler. His look dared me to say something. Carol smirked, clearly enjoying her new place in the company, and by Tyler's side, Evelyn, our lead designer, was the first to speak up. But Mr. Perry, we already have a full team. And Mary will be helping Carol get settled, Tyler interrupted smoothly. Won't you, dears? All eyes turned to me. I could feel the mix of pity and curiosity for my coworkers. I took a deep breath and forced a smile, though it felt more like a grimace. Of course, I managed. Welcome aboard, Carol. The next few hours passed in a blur of forced smiles and hidden tension. I retreated to my office, trying to focus on work, but my mind kept circling back to Tyler's betrayal. A knock on my door pulled me from my thoughts. It was Scott, his face full of concern. Mary, I just heard. Are you all right? I shook my head, holding back tears. I don't know how much more I can take, Scott. It's like Tyler is trying to hurt me in every possible way. Scott's expression turned serious. This ends now. I'm calling an emergency board meeting. Tyler's gone too far. Before I could respond, Tyler stormed into the office, his face red with anger. What do you think you're doing, Dad? He snarled. This is my company now. You can't just barge in here and... Enough. Scott's voice was firm, stopping Tyler mid-sentence. You've made a joke of everything I worked so hard to build. It's time you face the consequences. Tyler's eyes narrowed. Consequences? I'm just getting started. He reached into his jacket, pulled out an envelope, and tossed it onto my desk. Consider this my first official act as president. With shaking hands, I opened the envelope. Inside were divorce papers, already signed by Tyler. He looked at me coldly. You're fired, I whispered, feeling disbelief and hurt wash over me. Tyler's laugh was cold. Firing you? Oh no, Mary. I'm setting you free from this job, from this marriage, from everything. I looked down at the papers, my whole world crumbling around me. All those years, all our dreams, reduced to a few sheets of legal words. Tyler, please, Scott said, trying to calm him down. Think about what you're doing. Mary has been the backbone of this company. Without her, we'll finally move forward. Tyler snapped. Face it, Dad. Your way is outdated. Carol and I have big plans for the future. As they argued, a strange calm settled over me. I looked at the divorce papers, then up at Tyler, this stranger wearing my husband's face. At that moment, I made a decision. I'll sign, I said quietly, cutting through their heated exchange. Both men turned to me in shock. Tyler was the first to recover, a smug smile crossing his face. I knew you'd see reason, Mary. It's really for the best. I met his gaze steadily. You're right, Tyler, it is for the best. But not for the reasons you think. I signed the papers, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. Tyler might have thrown away our marriage, but I was done being a victim. I quit, I announced, standing up. Effective immediately. Tyler's smirk faded. What? You can't just... I can, and I am, I said firmly. Good luck running this company without me, Tyler. You're going to need it. As I walked out of the office, my head held high, I heard Scott call after me. Mary, wait. I stopped and turned back. Scott's eyes held a mix of pride and determination. I have a proposition for you, he said. One that might just save this company and give you the fresh start you deserve. For the first time in months, I felt a spark of hope. Whatever came next, I was ready to face it on my own terms. Later, I sat across from Scott in his cozy home office, holding a warm mug of tea. The past few days swirled through my mind like a storm. Mary, Scott began, his voice calm yet firm, I want you to come work for my nonprofit architectural trust. We need someone with your skills and integrity. I blinked, surprised. But Scott, what about the company? What about Tyler? Tyler made his choice, Scott said, a hint of sadness in his eyes. Now it's time for you to make yours. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from Evelyn, SOS. Everything's falling apart here. Tyler and Carol are running the place into the ground. We need you, Mary. My heart clenched. Despite everything, I still cared deeply about the company and the people I'd worked with for so many years. I need some time to think, I said. I told Scott, and he nodded with understanding. Of course, but don't take too long. We both know Tyler won't waste any time tearing down what we've built. The next morning, I took a deep breath and walked into the office one last time to clear out my desk. The atmosphere was tense, and conversation stopped as I passed. While I packed my things, Evelyn appeared at my door, her face worried. Mary, thank God you're here. It's a mess. Tyler's canceled 4 big projects, and Carol's reassigning teams without caring about their skills. Clients are furious. I don't work here anymore, Evelyn, I said, my voice tight. There's nothing I can do. Evelyn's eyes went wide. You're leaving? But what about us? What about the companies? Before I could answer, Tyler's voice boomed from the hallway. Mary, what are you doing here? He marched into my office with Carol close behind, looking smug. Just grabbing my things, I replied calmly, refusing to let him intimidate me. Tyler's eyes narrowed. Good. The sooner you're gone, the better. Carol can more than handle your duties. I couldn't help but laugh. Can she? Is that why clients are threatening to leave and the staff is in chaos? Carol stepped forward, digging her manicured nails into Tyler's arm. I'm doing an excellent job. Tyler says I'm a natural. I'm sure he does, I replied coolly. But running a successful architectural firm takes more than just being natural. Tyler's face reddened with anger. Enough. Get out, Mary. You're not welcome here. As I picked up my box of belongings, a stir in the hallway caught my attention. Scott strode in, flanked by 3 board members. What's going on? Tyler demanded. Scott's voice was firm. Emergency board meeting, Tyler. Your recent decisions have put this company in danger, and we're here to discuss your future as president. Tyler's confidence wavered. You can't do this. I'm in charge now. We'll see about that, one of the board members said, looking serious. As they headed toward the conference room, Scott looked back at me. Mary, We could use your insights in this meeting, if you're willing. I hesitated, torn between walking away from the mess and the loyalty I felt for the company I'd helped build. Tyler sneered. She doesn't work here anymore, Dad. She has no say. Something snapped in me. I set down my box and stood tall. Actually, I think I will stay for this meeting. Seems I'm the only one who knows how this company truly runs. Carol gasped, and Tyler stammered, but Scott smiled with pride. As we entered the conference room, I felt a surge of determination. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about protecting the legacy Scott had built and the livelihoods of everyone who worked here. Whatever came next, I was ready to fight. Not for Tyler, not for our broken marriage, but for the company and the people. I knew it was time to show everyone, especially Tyler, what I could really do. The boardroom was tense as I laid out the hard truth about the company's situation. Spreadsheets and reports filled the table, each one showing how bad things had gotten under Tyler's leadership. In the past month alone, we've lost 3 major clients, I explained, keeping my voice steady even though my heart was racing. Our reputation in the industry is sinking, and staff morale is at its lowest. Tyler's face turned red with anger and disbelief. This is ridiculous.
We're doing fine.
Carol and I have been working on new strategies that will what, Tyler's? Scott cut in, his tone sharp. Run us further into the ground? The numbers don't lie. I watched as the board members exchanged worried looks. This was the moment, the one that would decide the company's future. Carol, who had insisted on being there, spoke up. But Tyler's been working so hard. He's been at the office late every night coming up with new ideas. I couldn't hold back a scoff. Is that what you call it? Because from where I stand, all I see is a company in trouble and a president who cares more about his personal life than his responsibilities. Tyler's eyes flashed with anger. You don't know what you're talking about, Mary. You're just bitter because I moved on. Moved on? I laughed bitterly. You destroyed our marriage, and now you're destroying this company. That's not moving on, Tyler. That's burning everything down. Mr. David, the oldest board member, cleared his throat. I think we've heard enough. It's clear that something drastic needs to be done to save this company. Tyler's face went pale. What are you saying? I'm saying, Mr. David replied, that we need to think about new leadership, effective immediately. The room broke into chaos. Tyler started shouting, Carol began crying, and the board members argued with each other. Through it all, I sat quietly, feeling strangely calm. Then Tyler turned to me, desperation in his eyes. Mary, please, he said. You have to help me. Tell them I can fix this. Tell them we can work together again, like before. I looked at him, the man who used to be my partner in everything. For a moment, I saw a glimpse of the old Tyler, scared, vulnerable, and asking for help. But then Carol's hand clutched his arm possessively, and reality came back to me. I'm sorry, Tyler, I said gently. But you made your choice, and now you have to live with it. Scott stood, his voice cutting through the noise. I move that we vote on Tyler's continued leadership of this company. All in favor of removing Tyler from his position as president, raise your hand. Time seemed to slow as hands went up around the table. 1, 2, 3, a clear majority. Tyler's face fell as he realized what was happening. This isn't fair. Carol cried out. You can't do this to us. But it was done. Tyler was out, and the company was safe for now. As the meeting ended, Scott pulled me aside. Mary, we need you. The company needs you. Will you come back and help us rebuild? I hesitated, torn between my desire to help and my wish for a fresh start. Before I could answer, Tyler approached, his eyes red and desperate. Mary, please, he begged. Don't let them do this. You know me better than anyone. You know I can fix this if you just give me one more chance. I looked between Tyler and Scott, feeling the weight of their hopes on me. The future of the company and my own hung in the balance. I realized this wasn't just about saving a business. It was about standing up for myself, for my worth, and for everything I'd worked so hard for. Taking a deep breath, I made my decision. Whatever happened next, it would change everything. Standing at the podium, I faced a room full of expectant faces. The company-wide meeting had been called to address the recent chaos, and as the new interim CEO, it was up to me to set our path forward. As many of you know, I began, keeping my voice steady despite my racing heart. The past few weeks have been challenging for our company. But today marks a new beginning. From the corner of my eye, I saw Tyler slip into the back of the room, looking tired. Carol was nowhere in sight. We've lost clients, and yes, we've faced setbacks, I continued, but the heart of this company, the talent, dedication, and vision that each of you brings, that hasn't changed. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. I went on, explaining our plans to regain client trust and stabilize our finances. As I spoke, I could see hope returning in my colleagues' eyes. Suddenly, Tyler's voice rang out. "This is all lies." Heads turned as he marched down the aisle. "Mary is trying to steal my company. She planned this whole thing to push me out." Gasps and whispers filled the room. I gripped the podium, forcing myself to stay calm. "Tyler, this isn't the time or place," I said quietly. "It's exactly the time," he shouted, his face flushed with anger. "You turned my own father against me. You manipulated the board. That's enough." Scott's voice came firmly from the side of the stage. He walked up, placing a supportive hand on my shoulder. "Tyler, you did this to yourself. Your actions, your decisions, they're what brought us to this point." Tyler looked between us, desperation on his face. "Dad, please. You can't let her do this. It's our family legacy." Scott's expression softened just a bit. "Son, a legacy isn't just about the name on a building. It's about integrity, hard work, and doing right by our employees and clients. Mary understands that. It's time you did too." A heavy silence fell over the room. I could feel everyone's eyes on us, waiting to see how this family drama would end. Tyler's shoulders slumped, and he looked drained, as if the fight had left him. "So, that's it? I'm just out?" he asked. I stepped away from the podium and approached him carefully. "It doesn't have to be the end, Tyler. There's still a place for you here, if you're willing to work for it." For a brief moment, I saw a glimpse of the man I once loved, vulnerable, unsure. But then his face hardened. "I don't need your pity, Mary. Or yours, Dad. I'll start my own firm. Just watch. I'll build something even bigger, even better." With that, he turned and walked out, leaving a stunned silence behind him. I returned to the podium, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes on me. This was a moment that would shape not just my role, but the future of the company. "I know that was hard to see," I began, my voice a little unsteady. "But it shows why we're here today. This company isn't about one person's ego or ambition. It's about all of us, working together to create something great." I paused, looking out at my colleagues. Some looked uncertain, some hopeful, all waiting for a sense of direction. I can't promise this will be easy. We have a long road ahead, but I can promise that every choice I make will be for the good of this company and for the people who make it what it is. That's all of you. As I went on to outline our plan, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The hardest part was over. Tyler was gone, and his last attempt to challenge me had failed. Now, I finally had the chance to lead on my own terms. But when I caught Scott's eye, I saw a hint of concern, and I knew that while this chapter was closing, a new one was just beginning. The real test of my leadership and our company's strength was still ahead. 5 months later, I stood at the window of my new office, looking out over the city. The view felt different now. It wasn't just because I was in the building for Scott's nonprofit trust, but because I saw things with fresh eyes. A knock on the door pulled me from my thoughts.
"Come in," I called.
Evelyn entered, her face glowing. "Mary, you won't believe it. We got the Henderson Project." I couldn't help but smile. The Henderson Project was exactly the kind of responsible, creative design I'd always wanted to do. "That's amazing, Evelyn. The team must be thrilled." "They are," she nodded, and then hesitated. "And there's something else you should know." I raised an eyebrow, waiting. Evelyn took a deep breath. "Tyler's company, it's officially bankrupt. They filed for Chapter 12 this morning." The news hit me like a wave. Despite everything, part of me had hoped Tyler would find his way. "And Tyler's?" I asked quietly. asked quietly. No one's seen him in days. Evelyn nodded.
No.
But Carol, she paused. She came by earlier looking for a job. Said Tyler left her with nothing. I sank into my chair, taking it all in. The Tyler I'd once loved and built a life with was truly gone. In his place was a story of how quickly success could turn to ruin when built on the wrong foundation. Almost as if he knew I needed him, Scott appeared in the doorway. I heard the news, he said gently. How are you holding up? I managed a small smile. I'm okay.
It's just a lot to process.
Scott nodded, his eyes filled with a mix of pride and sadness. You've done amazing things here, Mary. This new wing of the trust, the projects you're leading. You're changing lives. We're changing lives, I corrected him. I couldn't have done this without your support. He brushed off my thanks.
This was you, Mary.
You took something painful and turned it into something beautiful. That's a gift. As Scott and Evelyn left, I was left alone with my thoughts. I thought about Tyler, about the life we'd shared, and the dreams we once had. I thought about Carol and how chasing status and wealth had left her with nothing. Mostly, though, I thought about myself, the woman I'd been at the start of all this, afraid to speak up, eager to please. She felt like a stranger now. My phone buzzed, pulling me from my thoughts. A text from an unknown number. It's Tyler.
Can we talk?
My heart raced as I stared at the screen. 5 months ago, I would have jumped at the chance. Now, I took a deep breath and typed back, I'm sorry, Tyler, but I've moved on. I hope you find peace. As I pressed send, I felt the last ties to my old life fade. The future stretched out before me, full of possibility and promise. A knock at my door brought me back. It was my team, eager to start brainstorming for the Henderson project. Come on in, I said, smiling. Let's create something amazing. As we gathered around the conference table, ideas flowed freely, and I felt a deep gratitude. This was where I belonged, not defined by my relationship with Tyler or anyone else, but standing on my own, surrounded by people who respected and valued me. The journey had been hard, but it led me here, to a place of strength, purpose, and self-discovery. Looking around at the bright, eager faces of my team, I knew the best was yet to come. I picked up a marker and said, let's imagine the future together. As we began to sketch out our ideas, I realized that this moment, this work, this life I'd built from the pieces of my old one was my true happy ending. It wasn't a fairy tale, but something even better, a fresh start I'd made with my own hands and heart. The road ahead might not always be easy, but I was ready for whatever challenges came my way. I finally understood that my worth didn't depend on anyone else's actions or opinions. It came from within, from the strength and resilience I had found in myself. And that, I realized, was the greatest victory of all. Hello, my name is Rachel, and I'm 38 years old. Lately, my life has been really difficult. The past few months have taught me to relearn so many things, especially about trust and resilience. My husband, Paul, was the root cause of much of my struggles. However, in the midst of it all, a kind person stepped in and helped me avoid further pain. Let me start by telling you a bit about the people in my life, the ones who have played important roles in my story. First, there's my younger sister, Joyce. She's 5 years younger than me, and she's always been the pretty one. Growing up, we didn't get along very well. I was the nerd, while she was the popular one. For some reason, she seemed to always pick on me. It felt like she was jealous, but I couldn't understand why. My mom tried to help us get along, but no matter what she did, it didn't really work. When I went off to college, we stopped talking much. It wasn't that we were angry or anything, but we just drifted apart. After I graduated and she became a teenager, we started talking a little more, but it wasn't like we were ever close. Our relationship got better in a way, but we never really bonded like sisters usually do. I accepted that this was the best we could have, and I was okay with that. Next is Paul, my ex-husband. Paul and I met at work, and we hit it off right away. He was charming and sweet, and we dated for about 4 years before we got married. After our wedding, we worked really hard and managed to buy our first home together. I was the one earning more at the time, so the mortgage and the deed were in my name. Everything seemed perfect. 3 years into our marriage, Paul brought up the topic of children. "Honey, there's something I've been thinking about," he said to me one night. "I need you to hear me out and keep an open mind, okay?" "Sure," I replied. "What is it?" "Well," he continued, "we've been together for a while now, and I was wondering if maybe we should start thinking about having a family. What do you think?" I hesitated. Paul knew how I felt about having kids, and I wasn't too sure about it. "Paul, you know I'm not really into that idea," I told him gently. "I know," he said, "but we have the financial stability now. It wouldn't be that hard, and imagine how cute little versions of us would be, running around the house. Don't you think?" I smiled at the thought but remained cautious. "Yeah, but kids are a lot of work. They're a huge responsibility. We're 3 of the most hard-working and responsible people we know, aren't we?" he teased, trying to win me over. "Just think about it, okay? I promise I'll help with everything." Despite my doubts, I eventually gave in. Paul kept bringing it up, and over time, I started to warm up to the idea. Soon enough, we welcomed our first child, a son. 4 years later, we had a daughter. At first, Paul was very supportive. He helped out with the kids, and I thought everything was going well. But things changed quickly. Paul slowly stopped helping around the house. All the responsibilities fell on me, taking care of the children, the house, and everything in between. I found myself doing it all. After our son was born, Paul got a promotion and started earning more than me. One day, he came to me and suggested that I should stop working. "I'm making enough now," he told me. "Why don't you focus on the kids and the house? You don't need to work anymore." I tried to resist at first, knowing how important my career was to me. But Paul was persistent. He kept saying it made sense for our family, and eventually, I gave in to his wishes once again. I quit my job, thinking it would make things easier for everyone, but I had no idea how much worse things were going to get. I decided it wasn't worth the argument anymore, so I accepted my new role as a stay-at-home mom. To keep myself from getting bored, I picked up a new hobby, hosting dinner parties. It gave me something to look forward to, and it was nice to have my family around. I often invited my mom and my sister, who both lived nearby, and whenever my mother-in-law, Cheryl, was in town, she would join us as well. At first, this new life felt strange, but over time, I started to get comfortable with it. I had more time to spend with my kids, and I got to see my family often, which brought me some happiness. Paul and I were doing okay, at least I thought so. However, there had been some strain in our relationship. After giving birth to our second child, I went through a traumatic experience where I almost lost my life. It was a terrifying time for me, and it definitely affected our marriage. But I tried to push past it, telling myself everything would be fine eventually. I didn't think anything else was seriously wrong between us. But how wrong I was. One afternoon, I was cleaning our bedroom when I stumbled upon something that stopped me in my tracks, a pair of panties that didn't belong to me. They were lying in a corner, and my heart sank the moment I saw them. My mind started racing. How could this be? Were they someone else's? Was I not enough for Paul? I had been feeling distant from him lately, but I had just had a baby. It hadn't even been a full year since I gave birth, and I was still recovering, both physically and emotionally. I had been going to therapy to help deal with my postpartum trauma, making slow progress. But it seemed like it wasn't enough because now I was faced with the reality that my husband might be cheating on me. Once the initial shock wore off, anger took over. I couldn't believe this was happening.
I had to know who he was cheating with and why.
My hands were shaking as I grabbed my phone and sent Paul a picture of the underwear. I texted him, asking, "Whose are these?" But I didn't stop there. I needed more answers, so I opened his laptop and logged into his social media accounts. I wasn't proud of it, but I was desperate. I scrolled through his chats, hoping to find something, but at first, there was nothing suspicious. No unfamiliar women, no secret conversations that stood out. This only confused me more. I went through every contact, every message, trying to find some sort of clue. As I scrolled, I noticed that my sister's name popped up in a lot of the conversations. At first, I didn't think much of it. After all, why would I be suspicious of my sister talking to my husband? But something in me pushed to check their chat history anyway. What I found made me feel sick to my stomach. Their chats were filled with pictures and videos of them in bed together. There were messages where they talked about how much they loved each other, and even plans for Paul to leave me. I was horrified. My own sister, the one I had known my entire life, had been sleeping with my husband behind my back. I couldn't believe it. I felt betrayed on a level I didn't even think was possible. My relationship with my sister had always been complicated, but I never imagined she would do something like this. First, I ran to the bathroom and threw up because the disgust was overwhelming. Then, I tried calling Paul, but he didn't pick up. My mind was racing with so many questions and I needed answers, so I did the only thing I could think of. I called my sister, Joyce. She answered casually, like nothing was wrong.
"Hey, what's up?" she said.
I could hardly contain my anger. "Don't, what's up me? Seriously, what is wrong with you?" Joyce sounded confused, like she didn't know what I was talking about.
"What do you mean?" she asked.
"I found a pair of your panties in my bedroom," I snapped. "Have you been sleeping with Paul's?" There was a brief pause before she answered, her voice almost indifferent. "Yeah, for a while now." My chest tightened with rage.
"Why?"
I demanded. "Why would you do this to me?" Joyce sighed, like she was annoyed by my reaction. "I don't know, Rachel. It just happened. You seriously thought it was okay to sleep with my husband?" I asked, my voice shaking. "You're my sister. How could you do this to me?" "I thought I was helping you out," she said, like it was no big deal. Helping me out? By sleeping with my husband? I could hardly believe what I was hearing. Joyce had always been self-centered, but this was beyond anything I ever thought she was capable of. Joyce's casual tone made it even worse. "Look, Rachel, you've been boring lately. I figure I'd step in since you clearly weren't making Paul happy." Her words hit me like a slap in the face. I couldn't believe that she was trying to justify her betrayal as if she was doing me a favor. At that moment, I realized that I had been blind to the toxicity in both my marriage and my relationship with my sister. The people closest to me had torn my life apart, and I was left to pick up the pieces. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You kept Paul busy so I could focus on the kids? Are you serious?" I shouted into the phone. "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard." Joyce sighed on the other end, her voice flat. "Look, we didn't mean for it to go this far, okay? I only did it because he kept hitting on me, and he's a nice guy." I felt my heart drop even further. "But he's my husband, Joyce. Why would you help tear our family apart like this?"
She didn't seem to care.
"I just want what's best for Paul. If I'm what's best for him, then so be it." I was stunned. "You're disgusting," I spat before hanging up. I couldn't believe her nerve. My own sister, who was supposed to have my back, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. I lay in bed, completely numb, tears streaming down my face. I never thought my life would come to this. Everything felt shattered. Eventually, my youngest child woke up crying, pulling me out of my daze. I wiped my tears and tended to her, trying to push the pain aside. I couldn't let my kids see that something was wrong. They didn't need to carry this burden. As I went through the motions of the day, picking up my oldest from school, making dinner, and trying to smile when they asked where their dad was, I lied and told them he was working late. Inside, I was falling apart. As the hours passed, my anger turned into worry. It was almost 10 p.m., and Paul still hadn't come home. I tried calling him multiple times, but he didn't answer. I even tried calling Joyce to see if he was with her, but she didn't pick up either. Exhausted and emotionally drained, I finally went to bed, hoping that maybe, just maybe, I'd wake up and find that this had all been a terrible nightmare. But when I woke up the next morning, the feeling of dread only deepened. Something was wrong, and I could feel it. I looked around the bedroom and noticed that Paul's things were missing. I rushed to check the cupboards, the drawers, and anywhere he might have kept his stuff.
Most of it was gone.
He had left while I was asleep, without a word, without a note, without a goodbye. I stood there, in disbelief. Paul had just left. He didn't even try to talk things through or explain himself. He had simply packed up and walked out of our lives. I didn't know what to do. My mind was racing, but the only thing I could think about was my children. They needed me, and that had to come first. So, I did what any mom would do. I pushed down the pain, got my kids ready for the day, dropped my oldest off at school, and then drove to my mom's house with my youngest. When I got there, my mom could tell something was wrong. I was distant, barely speaking, my mind trapped in a whirlwind of emotions. I hadn't even had the courage to tell her about Paul and Joyce yet. All I could think about was how I was going to raise 3 kids on my own. The weight of it all was too much. Finally, my mom couldn't take my silence anymore. She looked at me, concerned. "Okay, enough," she said, her voice firm but gentle. "What's going on? Something's clearly bothering you." I hesitated. How could I even begin to explain? "I don't know how to say this," I started, my voice trembling. "Just start from the beginning," she urged. "What happened?" I took a deep breath and blurted it out. "I found out Paul has been cheating on me." My mom's face fell in shock.
"What?"
"How do you know?" "I found another woman's underwear in our bedroom. When I asked Paul about it, he didn't answer, and then he left." Her eyes widened. "He left? What do you mean he left?" "When I woke up this morning, all his things were gone. He packed up and left during the night. I didn't even realize when he came back." My mom shook her head in disbelief. "Oh my God, my poor girl. I'm so sorry this happened." I could feel the tears welling up again. "Yeah," I whispered. "It gets worse." My mom's expression changed to one of deep concern. "Oh no. What happened? Do you know who he cheated on you with?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I know who it was. I went through his things, and I found out." Mom looked at me, her eyes searching mine. "Who was it?" I could barely get the words out. "It was Joyce." There was a long, heavy silence. My mom's face went pale as she stared at me in disbelief. "Excuse me? What did you just say?" "My own sister," I repeated, the pain and betrayal washing over me again. "Paul has been cheating on me with my own sister." My mom's hands flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. Neither of us could believe the nightmare we were living. I called Joyce to confront her about everything, and to my shock, she was completely casual about it. She told me they were in love and that she believed she was the best thing for Paul, so she planned to stay with him. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own sister had betrayed me, and she didn't even seem to care. "Oh my God," I whispered. "What has she done? How am I going to survive this?" I felt completely lost. I had 3 kids to raise, no job, and now no husband. "Look," my mom said gently, "why don't we just get some rest for now? We'll figure this out together. I'm here to help you, okay?" I nodded, feeling grateful for her support.
"Yeah, okay."
"Thanks, Mom." By the time I had finished telling my mom everything, I felt numb. It was strange, but somehow, talking about it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. Maybe I had already started to shut down emotionally. That night, I slept while my mom took care of my youngest. I felt drained, like my body couldn't handle any more. When I woke up, I heard my baby crying and my mom's voice, loud and angry. I rushed out of bed and saw her on the phone, looking furious. She hung up as soon as she saw me, and her expression softened. "I'm sorry for the noise," she said, "but don't worry about it." I didn't need her to explain. I knew she had been giving Joyce a piece of her mind. Over the next few days, my mom stayed with us, and it helped to have someone by my side. Joyce kept trying to call our mom, but she asked me to block Joyce's number. It was comforting to have someone understand my feelings, especially when I felt so alone. Soon, I found out from mutual friends that Paul and Joyce had gotten married. They reached out to me, confused and concerned, and I had to explain the whole awful situation. It was humiliating, but they were supportive. Many of them blocked Paul and Joyce, refusing to associate with them anymore. I couldn't believe they had gotten married the day after Paul left me. It hurt deeply, but I realized I shouldn't have expected anything different from them. When I told my mom, she was furious. My mom is usually calm and composed, so seeing her so angry was surprising. Still, her support meant everything to me. She didn't have to help me financially, but she did. She even assisted me in getting job interviews, knowing how much I wanted to contribute now that Paul was out of the picture. Taking care of the kids was manageable, but every time they asked about their dad, I had to fight back the tears. Even though it was tough, we were getting through it. About a week later, I received a letter from Paul. I didn't want anything to do with it. In my mind, a week was far too long for him to try and make things right, especially after abandoning his family. I figured it was some kind of apology, but I didn't care anymore. I was done. Without thinking twice, I burned the letter. Afterward, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of curiosity about what it said. Sometimes I wondered if I should have read it before destroying it, but then I reminded myself that nothing Paul could say would change how I felt about him or what he had done to me and our kids. The next day, my mom and I decided to take the kids to the local fair. It was a much-needed distraction, and we had a blast. It felt so good to laugh and enjoy myself after everything that had happened. For the first time in what felt like forever, I allowed myself to have fun. That night, after we got the kids to bed, my mom and I relaxed with a bottle of wine. I opened up to her about the letter. "So, something came in the mail for me yesterday," I said, swirling my wine glass. "Oh? What was it?" my mom asked. "A letter from Paul," I replied.
My mom looked at me in surprise. "What?"
"What did it say?" "I don't know," I admitted. She furrowed her brow. "What do you mean? You didn't open it?" "No, I didn't want to deal with anything he had to say," I said. "So, I burned it." "You burned it?" My mom's eyes widened in shock. "Cow, what if they were divorce papers or something important?" I shook my head. The envelope didn't look official or legal.
"I'm sure it wasn't that." My mom sighed.
"Well, if you're sure, but what do you think was in it?" I thought for a moment, but I honestly had no idea. Maybe it was an apology. Maybe it was nothing. But whatever it was, I knew it couldn't change the way I felt about Paul, or what he had done to me and our family. I was moving forward, with or without answers. "I don't know," I said, thinking about the letter I burned. Maybe it was a weak apology or a request for his stuff back. I wouldn't be surprised if that's all it was. My mom looked at me with concern. "How are you feeling about all of this now?" I sighed. Today was actually a good day. But it's tough, especially when the kids keep asking where their dad is. What do I even tell them? It's slowly getting better, but only a little. As long as it's improving, even just a little, my mom said reassuringly. "And you know I'm always here for you. I want you to know something. I'm cutting ties with your sister. Everything I have, it'll go to you and the kids." I was touched by her words. "Mom, that means so much to me, but are you sure? Evelyn is still your daughter, too." She nodded firmly. "I know you and Joyce had your differences growing up, but what she did is unforgivable. I raised both of you better than this, and clearly, Joyce didn't care. She's no longer my daughter after what she's done." I was speechless. A part of me understood my mom's decision, but I also knew how painful it must have been for her to make. I could never imagine cutting off one of my own children, no matter what they did. But hearing her say it made me even more grateful for her unwavering support. I knew it couldn't have been easy for her, and yet, she stood by me. Another 5 days passed quietly, and one afternoon, there was a knock on the door. It was strange because I wasn't expecting anyone. Besides my mom, who was at work, no one ever visited me anymore. Feeling a bit uneasy, I opened the door cautiously and saw 3 men dressed in black suits standing there. I opened the door just a crack and asked, "Who are you?" They introduced themselves as lawyers and told me they had something for me. One of the men handed me a letter and then a check. When I looked at the check, my jaw dropped. It was made out to me for $980,000. "There must be some mistake," I stammered, completely stunned by the amount. "There's no mistake," one of the men said gently. "Please read the letter." With shaky hands, I opened the letter. As I read the first line, "Thank you for saving me," I realized the money was from my mother-in-law, Cheryl. She explained in the letter that she had tried visiting us 5 days ago, but found no one at home. When she called Paul, he made excuses about not being able to get into the house. Cheryl became suspicious and pressed him for the truth. Eventually, Paul confessed everything about the affair, about leaving us. Cheryl was disgusted by his behavior. She wrote that she was deeply sorry for everything I had gone through and was grateful that I had not trusted her son with her assets. That's why she had decided to leave all her inheritance to me and her grandchildren. The check I held was part of that inheritance. Tears filled my eyes as I continued reading. The lawyers then explained that Cheryl had been terminally ill and she had passed away just the day before. She had instructed them to make sure I received the money immediately after her death, so I could take care of myself and the kids. Her letter ended with a heartfelt thank you for preventing her from making a mistake in trusting Paul with her finances. I was overwhelmed by Cheryl's kindness. Despite everything, she had always been a woman of integrity, someone who stood up for what was right, even when it meant going against her own son. Paul had always been intimidated by her strength and independence, but I had admired her for those very qualities. As the reality of her passing sunk in, I couldn't help but cry. Cheryl had been remarkable, and even in her final days, she had thought about me and my kids. She had wanted to protect us, and in doing so, she left behind a legacy of generosity and care. It was hard to believe that someone who had no obligation to me anymore would go to such lengths to ensure we were okay. I wiped away my tears and thanked the lawyers for delivering the letter and check. They expressed their condolences and left quietly. As I stood there holding the check, I couldn't help but feel both sadness and gratitude. Cheryl's last act of kindness had given me a lifeline, something to hold on to as I rebuilt my life without Paul. Later that night, I sat with my mom and told her everything. "Mom," I said softly, "you won't believe this, but Cheryl left me and the kids her entire inheritance." My mom looked at me in surprise.
What?
"Why would she do that?" "She knew what Paul did," I explained. "She was disgusted by him, and she didn't want him to have anything. So, she gave it all to us." My mom sat back, shaking her head in disbelief. Cheryl was a strong woman. It doesn't surprise me that she'd do the right thing in the end. "You and the kids deserve this after everything you've been through." I smiled through my tears. She was one of the good ones. I just wish I could have thanked her in person. "She knew," my mom said softly, "in her own way, she knew how much it would mean to you." We spent the rest of the evening reminiscing about Cheryl and how she had always had a quiet strength that people underestimated. Despite the pain and loss, I felt a sense of peace, knowing that I had people like Cheryl and my mom who truly cared about me and my kids. I found comfort in her. She kept her promise and supported me until the very end. A few days later, Paul called. I already knew what he was going to say, but I decided to listen. "What did you do?" he asked. "What do you mean?" I replied. "You know exactly what I mean, Paul. Be more clear."
What are you talking about?
"Why weren't you home that day? I specifically asked you to be there. I sent you a letter asking you to act like everything was normal while my mom visited." "Oh, was that what the letter said?" I asked, trying to stay calm. "You didn't read it?" "No, I burned it. You betrayed me. My mom was going to help me with the inheritance, but you took it all because you're selfish." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "That's funny, coming from you. You abandoned your family and only reached out to me when it was about the inheritance." "Love can't be forced, Paul. I did what was best for me, and your mother did what was best for us. Don't ever try to contact me or the kids again."
Goodbye.
After that, things happened quickly. I filed for divorce and was granted full custody of the kids. Paul tried to fight for the inheritance, but Cheryl had made it clear that it was for me, so he didn't win. He and Joyce tried to pressure me into giving them some of the money, but I refused to budge. Life has become easier since I got the money. I set aside a portion for my kids' college and invested the rest. My mom was able to retire, and I started working again. The kids have accepted that their dad isn't coming back, and when they're older, I'll tell them everything. I'm still healing, but I know things will only get better from here.